Hello, my dear students. Hope you guys are all doing good. Hope you guys are all perfectly fine. So I hope you're all giving your 100% in your preparation. So in this video, I'm going to bring before you all the amendments of the GST which will be applicable for May 2024 examination. So I know you have been waiting for this video for a long period of time. So sorry for the delay once again. So now we are going to exclusively talk about this dedicated video I have planned in which I'm going to explain about all the amendments which are applicable for May 2024 examination, which are applicable for GST. So all that amendments we are going to talk about in a detailed manner. So without any delay further, let us go into the amendments. But before that, I hope you all know. So the exam which we are going to give is in May 2024. And as you are aware, whatever amendments which have come into force 6 months prior to the examination, all that amendments will be applicable for your exam. So whatever circulars which have been given, whatever notifications that have been released, whatever section amendments they have done, whatever Finance Act amendments are there, whatever have taken place till 31st of October 2023. So this is the cutoff date actually. See, even after 31st of October, that is from 1st of November 2023, also some circulars were released, some notifications were released, all that happened. But for our May 2024 examination, the amendments which have been came into force, which have been effective till 31st of October 2023, all that amendments are going to be applicable for our May 2024 examination. So I hope everybody is clear about it. And talking about the content, see, whatever amendments are there, those all amendments I have compiled in this supplementary material. Not much, I will not say major amendments are there. So manageable amendments will not take much of a time. No major amendments as such. Here and there a few circulars, a few notifications, all that things are there. So that all I have compiled into one single supplementary document file, which is hardly 17 pages of the content. So just have access to this material and follow this lecture, which will go for 1.5 to 2 hours of time. So in which I will try to cover all these amendments. So that will be enough. Then you will be ready with all the content which is applicable for May 2024 examination. So without any much delay, so chapter wise I have given the amendments. Let us talk about the amendments which are there in each and every chapter. So first I will be starting with the supply chapter. See, as we all know, if you have watched our regular classes, we have spent a significant amount of time for supply chapter. So supply chapter is a very fundamental chapter from the GST perspective, very important from the examination perspective. Why? Because supply chapter actually talks about the taxable event. What exactly has to take place in order to be covered under GST. So that we have covered under supply under GST. So in fact, in the supply under GST chapter, we have covered the content from section 7. Section 7 actually talks about supply, so that we have covered. Along with section 7, we have also covered that section 8, composite supply, mixed supply, all that things we have covered. So now under supply chapter, we have an amendment relating to schedule 3. We have amendment relating to schedule 3. Guys, if you remember, we have discussed various schedules. We have discussed schedule 1, the activities which will be considered as supply even without consideration. We have discussed schedule 2, which is clarifying about whether an activity will fall under supply of goods or an activity fall under supply of services. So that confusion has been sorted out by schedule 2. Then we have schedule 3. Schedule 3 actually talks about those activities which will be neither treated as supply of goods nor they will be treated as supply of services. So schedule 3 actually talks about those activities which are neither treated as supply of goods nor supply of services. That means this schedule, the activities which are specified under schedule 3 are outside of the purview of GST. Whatever activities which are mentioned in schedule 3, they are neither treated as supply of services, they are neither treated as supply of goods, and practically speaking, these activities are something which are outside of the purview of the GST. So like if you remember the content from the main material, whatever we have discussed, if you go through a few sections of a few kind of activities under schedule 3, just a minute. Okay, these things are written. Come on. So this is schedule 1. This is schedule 2. Yes, we have schedule 3. So as you could see the title itself, schedule 3 is something which is talking about non-supplies. That means those activities which are given in schedule 3, these are not at all supplies only. They will not be treated as supply. If an activity is not treated as supply, then it will not fall under the purview of GST. And in schedule 3, various activities are mentioned. Like if you are an employee, whatever services which are provided by the employee to the employer in the course or in relation to his employment, that activities are outside of the purview of GST. So services provided by employee to his employer, that activities are covered under Schedule 3, on that GST will not come. Then we have services by any court or tribunal established under any law for the time being in force. So like that, in our regular classes, we have discussed various activities which are neither treated as supply of goods nor treated as supply of services, which are outside of the purview of GST. Now, actually, the amendment is there in para number 6 of Schedule 3. Where the amendment is there? The amendment is there in para number 6 of the Schedule 3. So earlier, in the para number 6, they used to say that entry number 6 provides as follows. Entry number 6, earlier it used to say actionable claims other than betting, gambling and lottery. Actionable claims other than betting, gambling and lottery. That means actionable claims, they are telling they will be neither treated as supply of services nor treated as supply of goods. Actionable claims are neither treated as supply of goods nor treated as supply of services. They are outside of the purview of GST, except certain actionable claims. Which means earlier the provision used to be, if you are doing betting is an actionable claim, but on betting there will be GST. So betting services will get covered under GST, that will be treated as supply. Similarly, gambling and lottery. So betting, gambling, lottery, these three actionable claims are falling under the purview of supply. On those transactions, GST will be attracted. Apart from betting, gambling and lottery, whatever other actionable claims are there, they are outside of the purview of GST. This used to be earlier provision. This used to be what? Earlier provision. Now in this para number 6, there is an amendment. Sir, what is that amendment? Now entry number 6 reads as follows. Now entry number 6 says actionable claims other than specified actionable claims. So which means now the para number says that there are actionable claims which are of two categories. One is specified actionable claims and other than specified actionable claims. So whatever other than specified actionable claims are there, they are not treated as supply. They are outside of the purview of GST. Whatever specified actionable claims are there, these will be coming under the GST purview. On these specified actionable claims, GST will be levied and collected. Clear? So the amended entry number 6 of Schedule 3 says that actionable claims other than specified actionable claims, which means specified actionable claims will come under GST purview. Specified actionable claims will be treated as supply. Apart from that specified actionable claims, whatever other actionable claims are there, they are neither treated as supply of services nor treated as supply of goods. They will not be treated as supply only. On that, GST will not come. So in order to understand this, first we have to understand, sir, what are specified actionable claims? Why? Because that specifically telling specified actionable claims will come under GST purview. Sir, what actionable claims will fall under specified actionable claims? Let us have a quick look at it. So they have defined in section 2 clause 102A, which says specified actionable claim means the actionable claim involved in or by way of betting, casinos, gambling, horse racing, lottery, money, online money gaming. So earlier they said that if you remember the old provision, they told actionable claims other than betting, gambling, lottery. Now they have extended that list. What they have done? They have extended that list. Now they are telling there are 6 specified actionable claims which are betting, casinos, gambling, horse racing, lottery, and most important thing here, online money gaming. So these 6 specified actionable claims are taxable. The activities involving these 6 kind of actionable claims will be taxable. They will fall under supply. On that, GST will come. Apart from that, whatever other actionable claims are there, on that other actionable claims, GST will not be levied. This is the amendment. This is the amendment. Hope you guys are able to understand. So earlier they used to say 3 things specifically. Now they have expanded the actionable claims which will come under GST purview. They are telling even now the services of casinos also will come under GST purview. Horse racing also will come under GST purview. And even online money gaming, specifically they have told online money gaming. This is one of the major thing. This is one of the major amendment which has come. So why online gaming has also been brought under GST purview? So specifically, if I have to say why this online money gaming has been brought under GST purview is because if you observe in the recent environment today, there are so many online money gaming platforms. Like for example, you might have heard about Dream 11. And if you follow the Shark Tank's episodes in India, there is one famous entrepreneur, Ashnir Grover. He's also become a very famous because of his aggressive attitude, and also he has written a book and all. So there were so many allegations against that person. He's having some crores worth of dining table and all. So this person, this entrepreneur, actually is a good entrepreneur. So Ashnir Grover is actually an entrepreneur, and also a lot of things are happening with him in the recent times. And recently, after he has been taken out of that Bharat Pay board, he has launched one company, CrickPay. Heard about it? CrickPay. So CrickPay is actually a online money gaming, same like Dream 11 only. See, basically, you might have experienced this mobile apps like Dream 11 or Jungly Rummy. So these are basically coming under online money gaming. Sir, what is online money gaming? Online money gaming means you are depositing certain money or money's worth, and you play with that money deposited, and in return, in expectation that you will make some money out of it. So just imagine some online poker games. You deposit money, play the poker game. If you win, why you deposit your money and play in expectation that you will make more money. So this is basically online money gaming. So we have this online money gaming apps are very much rapidly increasing in India, right? But government don't want to encourage this online money gaming app. Why? Because the youth, especially this teenagers and all, they all get easily diverted by easy money making. See, these online money gaming platforms are promoting easy money making. So you deposit the money, you play the game, you get back you make returns. So government don't want to encourage this industry. Why? Because the youth of this country is getting diverted. So they want to penalize these kind of people. So what the government has told us, okay, we will treat this, especially the major amendment was regarding this online money gaming only. The government told, we will treat this online money gaming as actionable claim. And the major blow here is, we will tax this at 28%. We will tax this online money gaming services at the rate of how much percentage? 28%. We are going to slap the GST rate on this online money gaming. And if you have watched the business channels and all, when this GST amendment has come, when the government has brought this amendment, if you watch the news channels, in all the news channels, there will be Ashnir Grover sitting opposite to the anchor. So why? Because he was so badly affected. He has started an industry which has not yet taken its full shape, which is about to launch. And the government told, we will slap 28% of the GST on all that online money gaming services. Why? Because the government want to discourage it. Able to understand? So that is what the entire reason behind this amendment. So now, what is the summary of this amendment, guys? So if I give you a summary, let me add some page here. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So what they are trying to say here is, so what is the summary of the amendment, guys? Very important from the examination perspective. Once again, I'm telling. So now the government has amended entry number 6 of Schedule 3, which says actionable claims will be divided into 2 categories. Number 1, specified actionable claims. Number 2, others. Sir, what will fall under specified actionable claims? Betting, gambling, lottery. These 3 are there earlier also. Now they have added to this list casinos. And after that, they have added to this list horse racing. And now they are also telling online money gaming. These 6 specified actionable claims will be falling under supply, and on that, will GST be there or not? Yes, GST will be there. What about others? Other than the specified actionable claims, what else are there? So whatever other actionable claims are there apart from the 6, on all that they will not be treated as supply. On that, GST will not come. This is the amendment. Understood? So let us see what else they are trying to say here. So we have understood the provision, but they have given certain definitions. Let us try to understand what are that definitions given here. First of all, what is the meaning of online gaming? So online gaming means offering of a game on the internet or electronic network, and includes online money gaming. So first they are defining what is online gaming. So if someone is offering a game on the internet or on an electronic network like a mobile app, software, etc., that we call it as online gaming. And online gaming includes online money gaming also. Sir, what is online money gaming? This definition is very important, guys. What is online money gaming? Let us see. Online money gaming means online gaming in which players pay or deposit money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets. When I say virtual digital assets, these days we have this cryptocurrencies and all. So online money gaming means an online gaming in which a player will deposit money, or he will deposit money's worth or even he can deposit virtual digital assets like cryptocurrencies and all, in the expectation of winning money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets. Why you are depositing the money and playing? With an expectation that you want to win more money in any event, and you want to win that money in any event, including that could be a game, that could be a scheme, that could be a competition, or any other activity or process. Whether or not its source or performance is based on skill, chance, or both. See, you are depositing the money, playing a game, or participating in the scheme, and whether you will win that event or not, that might be dependent on your skill, that might be dependent on luck, that might be dependent on chance. Doesn't matter. If you are depositing the money, like if I give you an example, see online poker games. If you see that online poker games, people will deposit the money. Some people will really have expertise, some people really have skill in that poker game. Now someone can't come and say, hey, I am depositing the money, playing the poker game where my skill is involved. Will you call it as actionable claim? Yes, we will call it as actionable claim. So the event, that whether the winning or losing of that event, that outcome is based on skill or luck or chance, doesn't matter. So online money gaming means a online gaming in which a player will deposit money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets, and with the expectation that he wants to win the money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets, in any event. That could be game, scheme, competition, or any other activity or process, where the outcome may be based on skill or chance or luck, doesn't matter, and whether the same is permissible or otherwise under any other law for the time being in force. Now the government is clearly telling, is that online money gaming permitted in law? Is it legal or illegal? Doesn't matter. We will bring it under GST purview. See, some betting websites are banned in India, but still somehow people, by using the VPNs and all, they participate in that online betting games. But still the government is telling, even though it is illegal, even though you are doing illegal activity, still we will charge a GST on it. So whether that online money gaming is permitted or not permitted in India, that means whether it is legal or illegal in India, doesn't matter. If you are doing certain activities which are falling under this online money gaming activity, we will definitely bring it under GST purview. Whether it is legal or illegal, doesn't matter. On legal also we want GST, on illegal also we want GST. Clear? So this online money gaming definition is very, very important, guys. Please repeat along with me. So online money gaming means online gaming in which the player, very simple, guys, you have to apply the common sense here. So just imagine certain app, you can automatically write the definition in your, you can automatically write the correct definition. So online money gaming is an online gaming activity in which player deposits money, money's worth, or including virtual digital assets, in expectation of winning money or money's worth or virtual digital assets in any event, which could be game, scheme, competition, or any other activity or process. And the outcome of that event, whether it could be based on skill or chance or both, and whether it is permitted in India or otherwise, it doesn't matter. So all those activities will fall under online money gaming, and online money gaming will fall under actionable claim, and this online money gaming will attract 28% of the GST. Clear, everybody? Now, okay, so they have brought online money gaming and all these activities under a GST perspective. Now they have to define the supplier also, no? See, you told on online money gaming activities, GST will be there. So you bought this online money activity under GST purview. Now, who should be that supplier who should take the registration and pay the GST on that? So because to include this online money gaming organizers, to bring them under the supplier perspective, even supplier definition has also been amended. See, just telling an activity will fall under GST alone will not be enough. You need to define who is that supplier who will be treated as supplying that online money gaming services, who is required to take the registration, who is required to collect the GST. So that's why even the supplier definition has been amended to decide who will be treated as supplier of online money gaming services. Let us see. So the definition of supplier has been amended to incorporate a provision which provides that. So that means the definition of supplier has been amended, in which they have added a proviso which says a person who organizes or arranges directly or indirectly supply of specified actionable claims. That means we have seen what are specified actionable claims. Any person who is organizing or arranging the supply of specified actionable claims. If I'm a person, if I'm organizing a gambling event, if I'm organizing a online money gaming, if I'm organizing or arranging for a horse racing, so I will be treated as supplier. I have to take the registration, pay the GST on that. Next one. And it also includes a person who owns, operates, or manages digital or electronic platform for such a supply. See, if I have created a app, if I have created a website, through my app, some online money gaming is happening. Even my even being a website owner, being a platform, electronic platform owner, I will be treated as supply of online money gaming services. Able to understand? So if a person who organizes or arranges for supply of specified actionable claims, or if I am creating a digital or electronic platform for supply of that actionable claims, specified actionable claims, that person also will fall under supplier definition. So he shall be deemed to be supplier of such actionable claims, whether such actionable claims are supplied by him or through him, whether directly he is supplying or someone is supplying through him, and whether consideration is in money, money's worth, or including virtual digital assets. For supply of such actionable claims, it is paid or conveyed to him, through him, or placed at his disposal in any manner. That means you are the person who is organizing or arranging that specified actionable claim, or you are the person who is running a website or an app through which that supply of specified actionable claims is happening, and you are the person through whom the money is passing, through whom the money's worth is passing, or you are holding that money. And all the provisions of the CGST Act shall apply to such supplier of specified actionable claims. So whoever has been treated as a supplier of specified actionable claim, as per this definition, all the provisions of the CGST Act will become applicable. That is required to take registration. He has to give the invoice. He has to collect the GST, pay to the government, as if he is a supplier who is liable to pay the tax in relation to supply of such actionable claims. Clear, everybody? So the entire intention of this amendment is, so the government wants to make sure that this online money gaming activity gets taxed, that too at a highest rate of 28%. So trust me guys, 28%. Why the government will slap that highest rate of GST on certain activities? When they feel certain activities not legal, not so ethical, then the government wants to discourage it. The only way by which government can discourage such kind of activities, increase the tax rate. Clear? So with this, we are done with this point. So amendment in schedule 3 para number 6, that we are done with. Clear and since we are done with understanding the amendment relating to schedule 3, so we have a few more points, a few more amendments relating to the supply chapter. So these are actually 2 circulars which are given by the GST Council. So the GST Council has given a circular clarifying regarding supply of food and beverages at cinema hall. And there is one more circular regarding taxability of shares held in a subsidiary company by a holding company. So let us try to understand what are these circulars about. See, basically when I say circular is actually a clarification given by the GST Council. Circular is basically a clarification. That means initially when the government implements the law, there might be certain misunderstandings or certain complications which may arise during the practical implementation of the law. So sometimes there could be confusion. To sort out that confusions, what the GST department actually do is they will issue one circular. Circular is basically a clarification given by the GST department. So 2 circulars are actually given here. Let us try to understand the circulars. First, we will talk about the second point, which is relating to a clarification regarding supply of food and beverages at cinema halls. So let us try to understand this, what exactly they are trying to say here. So let us try to understand the background behind this amendment. See, when you understand what is the background behind this amendment, the provision will actually go and sit in your brain. Okay. So assume that there is a movie theater, there is a cinema hall. So in the cinema hall, as a people will book the tickets, go and watch the movie in this theater. Okay. Now you might have paid attention when you go to a movie theater. In the movie theater premises, there will be canteen also. There will be some canteen or food station also will be there. So you can buy their popcorn, cool drinks, you can buy their some other food stuff. Now what actually happening is, assume that you are a customer. You are a customer. I will tell you 2 scenarios what they are trying to say. I will try to clarify the entire circular with this simple example. See, you are a customer. You are booking a ticket for the movie. If you are booking a movie ticket. Now today in the multiplex theaters, they will provide you the option at the time of booking the ticket. Along with your ticket, you can also book your food also. Along with your as a package, you can book the food also. So what you are doing is, you are a customer, you book the movie ticket. Along with that, you have also booked a food. You have also booked the food. For example, along with the movie ticket, you have ordered for popcorn. You have ordered for a package. So that means for this entire package, movie ticket along with a pack of popcorn, the theater has charged you some 300 rupees. Theater has charged you 300 rupees. If you book only ticket, if you book only movie ticket, the price is 200. If you are booking movie ticket along with the popcorn as a combo, you have booked a ticket, the price will be 300. Now, what this 300 rupees, it will be taxed at what rate? It will be taxed at what rate? See, if you take here two services are actually getting clubbed together, and two services attract different rates. Assume that movie tickets will attract 18% of the GST. Supply of food, that is, this is the restaurant service, this will be taxed at the rate of 5%. Now this 300 rupees should be taxed at which rate? Here the customer is booking a combo. He is booking a movie ticket along with food. For this combo, he is paying 300 rupees. What should be the rate of GST which is applicable on this 300 rupees? See, the clarification here is, if you pay the nature of service here, two services are getting clubbed together. Are they naturally bundled or artificially bundled? They are naturally bundled. And these two services are bundled in such a way that one is a principal supply. What is the main supply? What is the main purpose? You have booked this combo. What is the principal supply? You want to watch the movie. And to make that watching of the movie experience much better, you have added food. So two services are, two supplies are actually bundled, and this bundling is in the natural course of business, out of which one is the principal supply and the other supply is an ancillary supply. So this perfectly fits under composite supply definition. So the entire value will be treated as value for the supply of principal supply. So here the principal supply is watching a movie, and this entire 300 rupees should attract the GST at the rate of 18%. This entire 300 rupees should attract at the this entire 300 rupees for this combo should attract GST at the rate of 18%. Everybody agree with me? Clear and comfortable? Next, let me give you typical scenario. The same scenario I will try to give it in a separate way. So assume that this is a movie theater. Now to this movie theater there is a canteen attached. Now there is one person who wants to watch a movie. He booked a movie ticket. There is no compulsion that if you go and book a movie ticket, compulsorily you have to buy the food. There is no such obligation. So this canteen service is independent. So whether you watch a movie or don't watch a movie, you can buy and you can go and buy the food from the canteen. So here you bought only a movie ticket. You have paid 200 rupees. This customer has bought the movie ticket. So now when he was watching the movie, during the interval he felt hungry. See, on this 200 rupees he will pay GST at the rate of 18%. During the movie interval he felt hungry. He went to the canteen and he bought some food items. He bought some food worth 100 rupees. Now this supply of service, this supply of food by the canteen at the cinema hall, it should be treated as a restaurant service, and this 100 rupees will attract the GST at the rate of 5%. Able to understand what I am trying to say here? See, the clarification is very simple. If you are booking a combo, that will be a composite supply. The entire value will attract GST at the rate of principal supply. However, if you book the movie ticket separately and you did not book it along with the food, you are going to the canteen during the movie and you are buying the food and you are eating it, then that will be treated as separate restaurant service. Then the supply of food will be treated as restaurant service, and that will attract the GST rate which is applicable for the restaurant services. As simple as that. If you buy it along with the movie ticket, it will be a principal supply. Entire value will attract the GST at the rate of principal supply. If you are buying it separately, that will be treated as restaurant service, supply of food by a restaurant, and that will attract the GST at the rate of 5%. Clear? This is what the simple clarification whatever they have offered. So if we see it here, it is hereby clarified that supply of food or beverage in a cinema hall is taxable as a restaurant service as long as the food or beverages are supplied by way or as a part of the service. So you are watching the movie, as a part of that service they are giving you food, and supplied independent of the cinema exhibition service. See, it is getting supplied independently. That means you watch a movie, you don't watch a movie, the food will be supplied to you. If you go inside the movie theater, whether you go and watch the movie, you don't go and watch the movie, you're just roaming on the theater premises, still you can go and buy the food and eat. So in case if the food or beverages are supplied by way or as a part of service and supplied independent of the cinema exhibition service, then that supply of food shall be treated as restaurant service, and it will attract GST rate at the rate which is applicable for the restaurant services, generally 5%. However, where the sale of cinema ticket and supply of food and beverages are clubbed together, combo, I told about that combo, no? So in case if they are getting clubbed together and such bundle supply satisfies test of composite supply, the entire supply will attract GST at the rate applicable to service of exhibition of cinema, which is a principal supply. The same thing which I have clarified here. If it is combined, if it is clubbed together, then entire value will attract GST rate which is applicable for exhibition of a cinema. On the other hand, if you buy the movie ticket separately and you go and eat the food at the canteen, that will be a restaurant service and it will attract GST at the rate of 5%. Clear? Understood? Now let us come to this clarification is very simple. Hope you guys have understood it. Let us try to understand one more clarification. Clarification on taxability of shares held in subsidiary company by a holding company. This is one interesting issue which has come before the GST department. So what is this interesting issue is, assume that there is one company, X Limited, which is a holding company. It is holding more than 51% of the shares, greater than or equal to 51% of the shares in Y Limited. Now X Limited will become subsidiary company and Y Limited will become subsidiary company. Now the question which came to the GST council is the holding of shares by the holding company in the subsidiary company, can it be treated as supply of service? Confusing? So what the issue which has come to the GST department is the holding of shares by the holding company in the subsidiary company, will it be treated as supply of service? By holding the shares in a subsidiary company, is the holding company providing any services to subsidiary company? Sir, what is this? Why this confusion has come? See, basically, if that is true, then the tax economy for the company will be very high. There are so many holding companies in India. So is every holding company which is holding the shares in the subsidiary company, by holding the shares in subsidiary company, is it providing any services? Will it attract GST? The answer is no. Definitely that is not a service. That is not a supply of service. Holding a shares is not a supply of service. But why this doubt has come? See, final conclusion is, I will tell you the clarification. What clarification they have given is, holding of shares by the holding company in the subsidiary company, it is not supply of service. That is a clarification. That is purely common sense also. Sir, but why this issue has come before the GST department? I will tell you the background behind this. Why this issue has come? See, the issue has actually started here. SAC2 entry. Nothing but we have HSN classification for goods, no? We have HSN classification for goods. For services, we have SAC classification. That means classification of services. See, in SAC classification, there is one entry. See, SAC means simply like HSN for services. You remember it that way. See, there is one entry number 997171. This is one service classification, which says that the services provided by holding company and holding company or other equity interest in companies and enterprises for the purpose of owning a controlling interest. That means if a company is holding securities or holding a controlling interest in another company, that service will have a classification. Those services are actually classified under 997171. So this is a service classification given for this kind of activities. If a holding company, see, the summary of this is, if a holding company is holding the shares in another company, if one company is holding the controlling interest in another, that activities will fall under service classification 997171. Now, what some GST officer might have argued here is, hey, there is one service classification which is telling if a company is holding controlling interest in another company, that will fall under 997171. That is a service classification. Since it is a falling under 997171, I will treat it as a supply of service. On that, I will apply GST. On that, I will apply GST. So this is what one GST officer's argument, which the GST department clarified, no, here GST officer is wrong. Why? Because they gave a classification. You should not decide whether an activity is supply of goods or supply of services by way of classification. See, they assign the codes just to bifurcate the activities. See, if they have assigned this code 997171, this is just for identification of one activity. So you don't go by service HSN codes or SAC codes and treat that activity as supply. No. Able to understand whatever I'm trying to say? See, the final conclusion is this: if the holding company is having shares in the subsidiary company, just because of holding the shares in the subsidiary company, it is not providing any supply of service. That will not fall under GST purview. GST will not be attracted. Sir, why this doubt has actually come? Why? Because in service classification, there is one code which has been given for one activity. If a company is holding controlling interest in another company, that activity will come under 997171. For that, the service classification given is 997171. One GST officer found this point and they told that since for this code a service for this activity a code has been assigned, I will treat it as supply of services. On that, I will collect GST. The department clarified, no, the officer is wrong. That activity will not fall under supply of services. Clear? So if we read the explanation, if we read the content of the circular, that will be much clear. Let us try to read it, what they are trying to say. The issue which arose for consideration is whether holding of shares in a subsidiary company by the holding company will be treated as supply of service, and whether the same will attract GST or not. This is what the issue which come before the GST department. It is clarified that securities are considered neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. If you remember the goods definition, which we understood in the supply chapter, supply doesn't include securities. So securities which will not fall under goods also, securities will not fall under services also. So it is clarified that securities are considered neither as goods nor as services in terms of definition of goods under section 2 subsection 52 and also definition of services. So either in the definition of goods and also if you see the definition of services, this clearly mentioned that securities will neither fall under goods, will neither fall under services. See, in order to attract GST, there should be either goods or services and supply of goods or services should happen. When certain item is neither good nor services, then it will be completely outside of the purview of the GST. So further, securities include shares as per definition of securities. This implies that securities held by holding company in the subsidiary company are neither goods nor services. Further, purchase or sale of shares or securities is in itself neither a supply of goods nor supply of services. For a transaction or activity to be treated as supply of service, there must be a supply as defined under section 7. It cannot be said that a service is being provided by the holding company to the subsidiary company solely on the basis that there is a specific SAC 2 entry 997171 in the scheme of classification of services mentioning the services provided by holding company, that is holding securities or other equity interest in companies and enterprises for the purpose of owning a controlling interest. This activity has been for the purpose of identification. They have given one code. So just because a code has been given this activity, the officers can't say, okay, this will fall under services and we will attract and we will charge GST on it. No. So whether an activity will be supply or not, that we have to govern by section 7, not by reference to HSN codes or SAC codes. That is completely wrong. So whether an activity will fall under supply or not, that has to be purely on the basis of section 7, not on the basis of HSN classification, not on the basis of SAC classification. Understood? So that is what they say here. Therefore, the activity of holding of shares of subsidiary company by the holding company per se cannot be treated as supply of services by a holding company to the subsidiary company and cannot be taxed under GST. This is what the final clarification which has been issued. Understood, everybody? So with this, we are done with the amendments relating to supply chapter. Everybody comfortable till here? Shall we proceed further? Yes, let us go ahead and try to understand the amendments in the remaining chapters. Now proceeding further with the subsequent chapters, we'll try to understand now the few amendments relating to charge of GST. So let us try to understand amendments relating to this. So first, here also there are a few circulars. Let us try to understand the first circular, which is regarding tax on services supplied by director of a company in his personal capacity, such as renting of immovable property to the company or body corporate, are not payable under reverse charge mechanism. See why this circular, what is the issue came. So we'll try to understand like the way we are understanding the other concepts. So for that, first I will try to explain one activity. So in the charge of GST, if you remember, there are certain services which are notified under which the tax is payable under reverse charge mechanism. Do you guys remember? There are various activities which are prescribed where the services are has to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge mechanism. One such service which has been prescribed is services provided by the director of a company. So just I wanted to take you to that. Yes. See, this is the main material. So this service we have covered. One of the service which is notified under reverse charge mechanism is services which are supplied by a director of a company or body corporate to the said company or body corporate located in a taxable territory. So what we understood in this provision. So first we will try to recollect what we know, then what amendment, then what clarification has been given. So assume that there is a director. There is a person who is acting as a director of some company X Limited. Now this person is providing services as a director. This person is providing services as a director. So he's providing directorship services. So he is a supplier of service, whereas this company is receiving the directorship services. So this company is the recipient. So the person is providing directorship services and the company is paying him remuneration. So here supply of services is happening. This activity will attract GST. But the government has told this activity will fall under reverse charge mechanism. This activity will fall under reverse charge mechanism. So what is reverse charge mechanism? Generally in the forward charge mechanism, what will happen is the supplier will collect the GST. Generally in the forward charge mechanism, the supplier will collect the GST from the recipient and pay to the government. This is what forward charge mechanism. But in the reverse charge mechanism, the supplier will not collect the GST from the recipient. The recipient will directly pay the GST component to the government. So this is what reverse charge mechanism. So the government has clarified that one of the service which they have notified is supply of services by a director to a company or body corporate. For these services, the tax has to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge mechanism. See, here I have told few more points also. So whether the reverse charge mechanism will become applicable or not, that depends on is the director an employee of the company or is a director is a professional. So is a director providing the service, is a director is in the position of employee of the company or is a director is in the position of a professional. How we have to decide is under which section the TDS is getting deducted. Under which section the TDS is getting deducted. I hope you guys remember this discussion. So if directors are employees, the TDS will be deducted. Whatever remuneration the company pays to the director, if they are doing the TDS under section 192, then the director is not a professional, then the director is employee. This activity will fall under schedule 3, services provided by employee to the employer in the course of employment. These are completely outside of the purview of GST. Whereas if the director is providing the services to the company and the company is deducting the remuneration under 194J, if the company is deducting the TDS under 194J, then they are professional services. Then those are the directorship services provided by the director to the company, and these activities will fall under reverse charge mechanism. These transactions will attract GST and the company is required to pay the GST to the government under reverse charge mechanism. Clear? See, I did not talk about the circular till now. Just I have made you recollect what is the main provision which we have already discussed in the class. Clear? So one thing is very clear. The services which are provided by the director and to the company where the TDS is deducted under 194J, those services will fall under the GST purview, and in those case RCM will become applicable. Now, one question which came before, one doubt which came before the GST department is, assume there is a director. He's a director. He is providing directorship services. He is providing directorship services where TDS is getting deducted under section 194J to the company. For that, he is receiving a remuneration of 1 lakh rupees. For that, he is receiving a remuneration of 1 lakh rupees. Now, does this activity fall under reverse charge mechanism? The answer is yes. This activity will fall under reverse charge mechanism. On this remuneration, whatever 1 lakh the company is paying it to the director for directorship services, on that reverse charge mechanism will come. The TDS, the GST has to be paid by the government under reverse charge mechanism by the company. Now assume that the same director is providing some other services, not in his professional capacity. In his personal capacity, he is providing some services like renting of immovable property. He's renting some immovable property to the company, not in his personal capacity, not in his professional capacity, in his personal capacity. He's providing directorship services. In addition to that, he is also providing some other services in his personal capacity. He's renting some immovable property to the company. He's renting some immovable property to the company. For that, company is paying some consideration to him. Does this activity also fall under reverse charge mechanism? The answer is no. The answer is no. So under reverse charge mechanism, only directorship services provided by the director where the TDS is deducted under 194J, those activities only will fall under reverse charge mechanism. If the director in his personal capacity, if he is providing other than directorship services like renting of immovable properties, etc., those activities will not fall under reverse charge mechanism. Those activities will fall under forward charge mechanism only. Clear? So this is what one circular which they have given to clarify it. So if we read the contents of the circular, tax on services supplied by director of a company or body corporate to the said company or the body corporate is payable by the company under reverse charge mechanism. So if you are providing directorship services, on that RCM will come. It is hereby clarified that services supplied by director of a company or body corporate to the company or body corporate in his private or personal capacity, such as services supplied by way of renting of immobile property, they will not come under reverse charge mechanism. Only directorship services will come under reverse charge mechanism. So only those services which are supplied by the director of a company or the body corporate which are supplied by him or which are supplied by him as or in the capacity of a board or of a director of that company or body corporate shall be taxable under reverse charge mechanism in the hands of the company. Only directorship services will be covered under RCM. Other services will not come under RCM. They will be covered under forward charge mechanism only. So this is one circular they have given. Now there are certain amendments which have happened in government related services. There are some amendments which have happened regarding government services under reverse charge mechanism also, and also under exemptions. Now what I will do is I will try to cover certain amendments under charge of GST and exemption related amendments. Both I will cover in single chart. I have prepared one chart actually. So let me show the chart for you. So like this, I have prepared a chart. In this chart, I will try to explain a few points. Which points I'm going to explain in this chart, I will mark it here. So I will cover the amendment portion of this one, entry number 5 under reverse charge mechanism, this entry number 2, this 2, along with amendments, along with exemptions, sorry. So this exemption, this exemption, this exemption, and this exemption. So these 4 exemptions along with that 2 amendments in the reverse charge mechanism, everything I will try to cover it in the form of one chart. So I've summarized all these things in the form of chart. Let us try to understand it. So ignore, if you want to ignore the content, whatever has been given here, and if you want to follow the chart, that is also fine. Just you can refer this chart to understand the amended provision. Okay, so directly I'm telling the amended provision. So what is this? So services which are provided by central government, state government, union territory, or local authority. Services which are provided by central government, state government, or union territories or local authorities. That means services which are provided basically by the government. Certain services are exempted, certain services are taxable. And out of those services which are taxable, certain services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism, certain services are taxable under forward charge mechanism. So let us try to understand which services provided by government are exempted, which services provided by government are taxable. Out of those taxable services, which are taxable under forward charge mechanism, which are taxable under reverse charge mechanism, all that we will try to understand. Okay, let us do it. So services provided by central government or state government or union territory or local authority. If the services are provided by one government to another government, so central government providing services to state government providing services to union territory, so union territory providing the services to local authorities, so like that. So services provided by one government to another government. If they are specified services, they are always taxable. Other than specified services, they are exempted. See, first we need to understand certain specified services which are provided by the government. So specified services are services which are provided by the Department of Post, Department of Post, like you go and do the post, speed post, registered post, etc. So services by Department of Post and services by Ministry of Railways. See, this is one amendment. This is the amendment actually. In the specified services, they have added one more category, Ministry of Railways, that is Indian Railways. They are also always taxable. See, earlier the provision used to be, so under specified services, they used to say services by the Department of Post, services in relation to an aircraft or a vessel inside or outside the precincts of a port or an airport, transportation of goods or passengers. So just let me tell you, let me be specific what I'm trying to say here. So if you would have gone to the exemptions chapter, where are government related services, just give me a moment, I will show you. I want you to understand the amendment in the correct perspective, so that's why I'm very much interested here. See, if you see here, previously they used to say under specified services, services by Department of Post, services in relation to an aircraft or vessel, transportation of goods or passengers. Earlier there used to be 3 categories under specified services. Now they have added one more. So what is that one more? Services by Ministry of Railways. So these are the specified services which are provided by the government, which will always remain taxable, that too under forward charge mechanism. Taxability, we will talk about it later. First, let us try to understand what are specified services. So I will say 4 here actually. The 4 specified services are services by Department of Post, services by Ministry of Railways, services in relation to aircraft or a vessel. If the government is providing any services relating to an aircraft, relating to a ship, or inside or outside the precincts of an airport, so that is, I will say simply, services provided to an aircraft or vessel. And also services in relating to transportation of passengers. Services relating to transportation of goods or passengers, like RTC, Road Transport Corporation services, transportation of goods, etc. So like this, these 4 services will be specified services. So going forward in this chart, whenever I am telling this specified services, I am referring to 4 services. What that will be? Services by Department of Post, services by Ministry of Railways, services in relation to a vessel or aircraft, services by transportation of goods or passengers. These services, if they are provided by government. Okay, so let us come back to the chart. So if the services are provided by government to another government, and if they are specified services, what are specified services? Department of Post, Ministry of Railways, services in relation to aircraft or vessel, and transportation of goods or passengers. So if these services are provided by one government to another government, they will always be taxable. They will always be what? Taxable. And they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. That means whoever is providing the services, forward charge mechanism means supplier only will collect the GST from the recipient and pay to the government. Normal forward charge mechanism will be there. If any other services are getting provided, if the government is providing other than this four, if any other services is provided to another central government, state government, union territory or local authority, they are exempted. They're exempted. No GST will come in that cases. Understood everybody? So this is case one. So services provided by one government to another government. If they are specified services, they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. If they are other than specified services, exempted. Next one. Same thing applies to non-business entities. See, if a government, if the central government, state government, union territory or local authority, if they are providing certain services to non-business entity, if they are providing certain services to non-business entity, for example, I am an individual, I went to the government and availed some Aadhaar services. So the government is providing services to non-business entity. If they are falling under specified services, sir, once again, what are specified services? Services by Department of Post, Ministry of Railways, services in relation to aircraft or vessel, transportation of goods or passengers. So for example, I'm a non-business entity. I went to the post office and I received some services from the Department of Post. On that, will GST become? Yes, GST will come. Who will pay the GST? The Department of Post only will pay. Forward charge mechanism. For example, I go and book some I go and book some parcel with the Department of Post. I'm a non-business entity. You go to the post office and you book a parcel. They will give you a slip. On that, GST also will be there. They will collect the GST and pay it to the government. Forward charge mechanism. Similarly, if I go and avail some services from Ministry of Railways, taxable. Who will pay the GST? They will collect from me. Ministry of Railways will collect from me and pay to the government. If I get any services relating to aircraft or vessel, I'm a non-business entity. The government will collect GST from me and pay to the government. If I go and avail passenger transportation services, for example, state level road transport corporations will be there. APS, RTC. If I go and travel in this bus, so they will give me ticket. On the ticket, GST will be there. The bus operator, that is the government, will collect the GST from me and pay to the government only. State government, ABS, RTC will collect the GST from me and pay to the government. Clear and comfortable, everybody? So if the government is providing services to a non-business entity, and if they are providing specified services like services by Department of Post, Ministry of Railways, aircraft or vessel or transportation of goods or passengers, yes, those services are taxable and they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. That means these government entities will collect the GST from the customers, pay to the government. Clear? Sir, what if there are other services like I am talking about Aadhaar services? So I am a non-business entity. Government is providing some services which is not falling under specified services. On that, no GST will be there, exempted. So when we talk from both the perspective, services provided by government to another government or services provided by government to non-business entity, the ruling is same. If it is specified services, taxable under forward charge mechanism. If it is other than specified services, not taxable, exempted. So now let us come to the next part. Business entity. In case if the services are provided by the business entities, what will be the situation? Let us try to understand it. So if the services are provided to business entities, and see this chart has extended here. For business entities, we have given different categories. Let us try to understand. So government is providing services to some business entity. Here, if the government is providing specified services, once again, what are specified services? See why I am repeating these many number of times. These specified services should get printed in your mind. That's why I'm repeating these many number of times. You also have to repeat along with me. So what are specified services? Services by Department of Post, services by Ministry of Railways, services in relation to aircraft or vessel, services in relation to transportation of goods or passengers. So the government is providing any of the specified services to the business entity, taxable under forward charge mechanism. So by now you would have made a conclusion that if the government is providing specified services to anybody, to another government, to a business entity, to a non-business entity, to anybody, the specified services are all taxable or always taxable under forward charge mechanism. Okay. So if the government is providing specified services to a business entity, they are always taxable under forward charge mechanism. Now, if the government is providing services by way of renting of immovable property, by way of what? Renting of immovable property. If the renting of immovable property is specifically done by Ministry of Railways, if immovable property is rented, the supplier of renting of immovable property is Ministry of Railways, they will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. So if the Ministry of Railways, if they are providing services relating to renting of immovable property to some recipient, these services will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. That is, Ministry of Railways will collect the GST from the recipient paid to the government. So renting of immovable property services provided specifically by Ministry of Railways, they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. If they are provided by others, if someone else is providing that renting of immovable property services, then also they will be taxable. And whether it will be taxable under forward charge mechanism or reverse charge mechanism, it depends on the status of the recipient. So other than Ministry of Railways, if the government is providing renting of immovable property services to a recipient who is a registered person, those services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Here, recipient being a registered person, he has to pay the GST to the government under reverse charge mechanism. However, other than Ministry of Railways, if some government is providing services of renting of immovable property and if the recipient is unregistered person, then also they will be taxable, but here they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. Since the recipient is unregistered, the government doesn't want to make the obligation for this person to get compulsorily registered. So that's why the government told this we will tax under forward charge mechanism. We will collect the GST and pay it to the government. Clear? So when it comes to business entity, first we have seen specified services always taxable under forward charge mechanism. Services by government which are relating to renting of immovable property, if it is by Ministry of Railways, taxable under forward charge mechanism. If the renting of immovable property is done by other than Ministry of Railways, then we have to check what is the status of the recipient. If the recipient is a registered person, they are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. If the recipient is unregistered person, then they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. Sir, apart from this, apart from specified services, apart from renting of immovable property, if any other services are provided. So specified services, taxable. Renting of immovable property, taxable. In some cases, forward charge mechanism, in some cases, reverse charge mechanism. Apart from specified services, apart from renting of immovable property, if any other services are provided by government to a business entity, then what I should check? Then I should check, is the consideration is less than or equal to 5,000 or is the consideration is more than 5,000? If the consideration is less than or equal to 5,000 rupees, those services are completely exempted. If the other services which are provided by government to a business entity where the consideration charged is less than or equal to 5,000 rupees, then those services are always exempted. GST will not be there. Sir, what if the consideration is more than 5,000 rupees? Then we need to check what is the status of the business entity. If the business entity is having an aggregate turnover less than or equal to applicable threshold limit of 40 or 20 or 10, depending on which activity you are engaged into and from where you are making a taxable supply. So if the consideration for services provided by government to a business entity is more than 5,000, then we have to check the status of the business entity. If the business entity's aggregate turnover is less than or equal to applicable threshold limit of 40, 20 or 10 in the preceding financial year, then they are exempted. However, if the consideration is more than 5,000 rupees, if the consideration is more than 5,000 and the aggregate turnover is more than applicable threshold limit of 40, 10 or 20 in the preceding financial year, then those services are taxable under forward charge mechanism. These is not under forward charge mechanism. These are actually under reverse charge mechanism. Sorry guys. So one small correction here. The last category where applicable threshold limit is more than aggregate turnover is more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, they are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. The business entity is required to pay the GST to the government under reverse charge mechanism. Clear? So this is what the amended position of services which are provided by central government, state government, union territory or local authority. Clear and comfortable everybody? So one small correction here. These are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Services provided by government to business entity where the consideration is more than 5,000 rupees and the aggregate turnover of the business entity is more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year. Those services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Clear? Able to understand everybody? So this is what the complete chart here. So this one small correction I have to do. Let me do that correction as well. So applicable, these have to be paid under reverse charge mechanism. Okay. Understood. Shall we do one more quick recap here once again? So once again, if we do the quick recap, come on guys, everybody participate. I do expect that from this a question will come which you have to answer it, with confidence. So listen carefully. So services which are provided by central government, state government, union territory or local authority, if they are provided to another government, if they are specified services, taxable under forward charge mechanism. For specified service, always taxable under forward charge mechanism. If any other services are getting provided by one government to another government, exempted. Next, when the services are provided to non-business entity, if they are specified services, always taxable under forward charge mechanism. If they are others, exempted. Next one, if the services are provided by government to a business entity, then there are different scenarios. If they are specified services, they are taxable under forward charge mechanism. If it is renting of immovable property, if it is by Ministry of Railways, taxable under forward charge mechanism. If it is by others, we have to check what is the status of the recipient. If the recipient is registered person, taxable under reverse charge mechanism. If the recipient is unregistered, taxable under forward charge mechanism. Whatever other services are there which are provided to business entity, first we should check the consideration. If the consideration is less than or equal to 5,000, exempted. If the consideration is more than 5,000, then we need to check what is the status of the business entity. See, if the business entity's aggregate turnover is more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, then those services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Those services are taxable under what? Reverse charge mechanism. Business entity has to pay. Being the recipient, they have to pay the tax to the government under reverse charge mechanism. However, if the aggregate turnover is less than or equal to applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, those services are exempted. No need to pay the GST on it. Clear? And from where relating to which amendments I have summarized all this, here I have summarized all these amendments. So if we want to read it, let us try to read it once. Entry number 5. See, this is regarding reverse charge mechanism. Services supplied by central government, state government, union territory or local authority to a business entity, excluding renting of immovable property, services specified below, services by Department of Post, Ministry of Railways, services in relation to aircraft or vessel or aircraft or a vessel or transportation of goods or services, these will fall under reverse charge mechanism. So what they are telling, services provided by central government, state government, union territory or local authority. Who is recipient? Business entity is the recipient. Then these services will fall under reverse charge mechanism. However, this provision will not become applicable. However, these services, However, for these services, RCM will not become applicable. Which services? Renting of immovable property, RCM will not become applicable. And services supplied by way of Department of Post, Ministry of Railways, services in relation to vessel or aircraft and transportation of goods or passengers. That's what even we have also told. That's what even we have also summarized here. So services provided by government to the business entity other than these two. Other than specified services, other than renting of immovable property, the balance services will fall under reverse charge mechanism. But however, regarding this, exemptions are there, which we will read it in the exemption chapter. Next one. What else they say? Now they have added one more thing. Services supplied by central government, excluding Ministry of Railways, state government, union territory or local authority by way of renting of immovable property to a person registered under the CGST Act. Now they are specifically talking about renting of immovable property. They are specifically talking about renting of immovable property. So what they are telling? So if you have a look at it here, this chart once again, if you have a look. So services by renting of immovable property by other than Ministry of Railways. So Ministry of Railways always falls under forward charge mechanism. And by others, if the recipient is registered, then they are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. In the balance cases, they will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. Able to understand everybody? Clear and comfortable till here? See, nothing but whatever I have summarized, that I am once again reading it from the material for your convenience. Now in the same way, if you read the content from the exemptions also, whatever exemptions I have marked here, if you read the content from the exemptions, this second, third and fourth and fifth, if you read all this exemptions also, the summary is this. If you read all the exemptions also as well, the summary will be this. So whatever the content which has been given in detailed paragraphical manner that I have tried to summarize here in the form of this chart, I would suggest you to read this chart only. So if you read all that exemptions and if you read all that reverse charge mechanism related provisions, basically if you read the provision, you will get confused. What in order to avoid your confusion, to make your life simple, what I have done is I have already put the effort and summarized it in the form of this chart. Just follow this chart, you will be able to remember it in a much better way. Clear and comfortable everybody? So these are few amendments relating to the charge of GST and exemptions. Let me see whether anything is left out. Okay. So we are done with the charge of GST. A point we are done. B point also we are done. There is something regarding 9 subsection 5. This I will have a separate discussion. This so many interconnected things are there. This 9 subsection 5, it has some interlinked provisions with the registration chapter and other things. This I will cover separately. 9 subsection 5 will have a separate discussion. I will keep it on hold. Then coming to exemptions, place of supply is still pending. Coming to exemptions, we are done with entry number 2, 3, 8 and 9. There are few more. One newly added exemption is there. So one newly added exemption is that entry number 3B, which says services provided to a governmental authority. Services which you are providing it to a government authority. You are a person, you are providing services to a government authority, and those services are by way of water supply, public health, sanitation conservancy, solid waste management, and slum improvement and upgradation services. If these services are provided by any supplier to the government authority, then only they are exempted. See, this is a recipient oriented exemption. So if these, not everyone providing these services will get this exemption. If you are providing these services to a government authority, if the recipient is a government authority, then only the exemption will become applicable here. So they have specifically mentioned the services which are provided to a government authority. When these services are provided to a governmental authority, then only exempted. If someone is providing these services to other than government authority, then there is no exemption, then those services will become taxable. Clear, everybody? So 5 kind of services which are provided to government authority are exempted: water supply, public health, sanitation conservancy, solid waste management, slum improvement and upgradation. And there is one change made to the existing amendment, which is satellite launch services. Earlier they used to say satellite launch services which are specifically supplied by ISRO, Antrix Corporation Limited or New Space India. Satellite launch services earlier provided by these entities are only used to be exempted. Now they have removed the term, which means satellite launch services supplied by anybody will be exempted. Satellite launch services which are provided by anybody will be exempted. Earlier, satellite launch services which are provided only by 3 organizations are exempted. Now, since they have removed this, which means satellite launch services provided by anybody will be exempted. Clear? So this is what the amendment relating to exemptions. With this, we are done with all the amendments relating to exemption as well. And there is one more pending thing from charge of GST that we will try to cover now. This 9 subsection 5 is linked with registration. There are some amendments in the registration chapter as well. Both we will try to complete it. Okay, so let us have a look at those further amendments now. So now going forward, we will try to discuss the amendments relating to 9 subsection 5. And when it comes to this 9 subsection 5, this thing is actually having so many other interrelated concepts also. So there are some concepts relating to this 9 subsection 5 even in the registration chapter as well. So everything, all the interlinked concepts related with 9 subsection 5, we will try to cover it. So first we'll begin with what exactly is this 9 subsection 5. So pay attention guys, very important from the examination perspective. So high chances of getting tested in the examination. So please pay complete attention. So what exactly 9 subsection 5 is telling? The government, on the recommendations of the GST Council, may notify specific category of services, the tax on supplies of which shall be paid by ECO, Electronic Commerce Operator, if such services are supplied through it. And such services shall be notified on the recommendations of the Council. So what exactly is this trying to say? So 9 subsection 5 actually says that the government is having a power. So 9 subsection 5 is actually trying to convey that the government is having a power to specify certain kind of services where if those services are actually supplied through a e-commerce operator, then in that cases, the tax will be directly paid by the e-commerce operator. GST will be paid by the e-commerce operator directly. See, for that, let us try to understand some background. Sir, what exactly is this e-commerce operator? See, when I say e-commerce operator, Flipkart is an e-commerce operator. Amazon is an e-commerce operator. Myntra is an e-commerce operator. Oyo is an e-commerce operator. Swiggy is an e-commerce operator. So what exactly is this e-commerce operator? So e-commerce operator means an online platform through which the goods and services will be supplied. Take for example, Flipkart. Basically, if you take Flipkart, so it is an e-commerce operator. So what is actually happening here is there will be a supplier. There will be a supplier who will be registered with Flipkart. There will be customer like you and me. So we customers, we actually go through this e-commerce platforms. We generally pay, we generally place the order. Just a moment. So this person is a customer. I have gone through the Flipkart. I have, I need to buy some product. Take for example, I want to buy one mobile phone. I want to buy one mobile phone. In the Flipkart, I have seen the mobile phone. I will place the order. See, when I place the order through this, Flipkart is e-commerce operator. When I place the order through this Flipkart, actually what will happen is Flipkart will get this order and they will divert it to the supplier. Now what supplier will do is he will supply the goods through that e-commerce operator to the customer. So here supplier is this person who is registered with the Flipkart. Recipient is a customer. Now generally what will happen is the supplier will give the invoice for the mobile. Supplier will give the invoice. For example, 1 lakh rupees is the mobile, 18% is the GST. He will collect GST also. 18,000 rupees will be 1,18,000 worth of invoice will be given to the customer. Now what the customer will do? Customer will pay 1,18,000. So supplier will collect that 18,000 rupees from the customer and pay it to the government. Total, he will get 1,18,000, that entire value. So out of that 1,18,000, the supplier will collect this 18,000. The supplier will take this 18,000 GST component, pay to the government. So when the goods and services are generally supplied through e-commerce operator, the suppliers will collect the GST from the recipients and pay it to the government. But what 9 subsection 5 is telling is the government is having power to notify certain services. So if certain services are provided through e-commerce operator to the recipient, tax will not be paid by the supplier, but in fact, in certain cases, e-commerce operator has to pay the tax directly to the government. So in normal circumstances, what will happen? When the goods are supplied through e-commerce operator, supplier, whoever is making the supply through that e-commerce operator, that supplier only will collect the GST and pay to the government. But under 9 subsection 5, as I was telling, the government is having the power to notify certain kind of services, which if provided through e-commerce operator, supplier will not pay the GST to the government. There is a liability on the e-commerce operator to directly pay the tax to the government. Sir, what are that services? Are there any notified services? Are there any services notified where e-commerce operator will pay the tax directly to the government? Yes. Services are notified. So what kind of services are notified? Where if certain services are supplied through e-commerce operator, the directly GST will be paid by e-commerce operator only. What are that services? So certain services are actually notified. Those services are, so the following services were notified for this purpose. Services by way of transportation of passengers by radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle or any other vehicles or any other motor vehicle except omnibus. And so what they are trying to say here, let us try to understand those services where e-commerce operator will have an obligation. We'll make a list actually. So e-commerce operator, if number one, services of transportation of passengers. Transportation of passengers either by radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle other than omnibus. So either by radio cab, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, but not omnibus. Okay. Next, second category of service. Services by way of transportation of passengers by an omnibus, except when the person supplying such a service through e-commerce operator is a company. Interesting thing. Pay attention. You will get the clarity. Carefully follow what I am saying. Services of transportation of passengers by omnibus. By omnibus, except when the person whoever is providing the transportation of services by omnibus is a company. It should not be a company. Sir, what is exactly omnibus? See, I will try to explain it in a simple way. Please follow. So what is omnibus? Omnibus means any motor vehicle constructed or adapted to carry more than 6 persons excluding the driver. So if a vehicle is having the capacity to carry more than 6 persons excluding the driver, that we call it as omnibus. So first thing what they are telling is service of transportation of passengers. You take Ola. So in the Ola, transportation of passengers is happening by way of radio taxi. Or you take Rapido. Rapido is a kind of service, is an e-commerce platform through which service of transportation of passengers through motorcycle is getting provided. So if the service of transportation of services is provided through e-commerce operator, in this case, the liability to pay tax will be on e-commerce operator. So if through Ola, someone is providing transportation of services in a cab, supplier of the service will be that cab owner. Recipient will be the person whoever is availing the cab services, but GST has to be paid by Ola, e-commerce operator. Take Rapido. See, the person whoever is providing transportation of passengers will be that bike rider. Recipient will be customer, but GST has to be paid by Rapido, e-commerce operator. Clear? Except omnibus. Sir, what about omnibus? For example, if a person is providing services, for example, let me put it this way. there is a bus operator services will be there. So there is a bus operator services. So this bus operator services is providing services of transportation of passengers through e-commerce platform. Take for example, Redbus. So let us take some vehicle. Let us take some transportation services name. So which a transportation service we take? For example, Intercity. So Intercity is a bus operator. They are providing transportation of passenger services to the customers. But this service is getting provided through e-commerce operator who is Redbus. Now what they are telling is, in case of service of transportation of passengers by way of omnibus, we have to check the person whoever is supplying the services, is it a company or not a company? If the person whoever is providing the transportation of passengers through omnibus is a company, then this person only should collect the GST and pay to the government. However, if the person whoever is providing the transportation of services by a omnibus through the e-commerce operator is not a company, then the e-commerce operator will pay the GST to the government directly. Clear? See, two kinds of services I have explained, where if they are provided through e-commerce operator, that liability to pay tax will be there on e-commerce operator. Number one is what? Number one is services by way of transportation of passengers by a radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, except omnibus. See, in these cases, whatever may be the status of the supplier doesn't matter. Be it company, be it not a company, always the liability to pay tax will be on e-commerce operator only. Whereas in case of transportation of passengers by omnibus, e-commerce operator will be liable to pay the tax only when the person whoever is providing the transportation of passenger services is not a company. Is not a company. If it is a company, the supplier only should pay the GST, not the e-commerce operator. I will give you a few scenarios you are supposed to answer. Okay, I will give you some case studies. See, take for example, there is a person X Limited. He is providing passenger transportation services. He is providing passenger transportation services by motor cab, not omnibus, by motor cab. This service is getting provided through e-commerce operator Ola to the ultimate recipient. Sir, who will pay GST in this case? E-commerce operator only will pay GST. Why? Because it is a transportation of services by other than omnibus. In case of transportation of passengers other than omnibus, whatever may be the status of the supplier doesn't matter. E-commerce operator only will pay the GST to the government. Next one. Take for example, X Limited company. It is providing passenger transportation services by omnibus, by way of omnibus, through an e-commerce operator. Take for example, through an e-commerce operator Redbus to the recipient. Who will pay the GST here? See, here the service is transportation of passengers by omnibus, but the supplier is a company. Here who will pay the GST is this company only will pay the GST to the government, not the e-commerce operator. Let me tell you another scenario. Some person, Mr. X, he is providing passenger transportation services. Passenger transportation services by omnibus through a e-commerce operator to the ultimate customer. Who will pay the GST? E-commerce operator will pay GST. Why? Because the person providing transportation of services by a omnibus is a person other than company. Let me give you another case. X & Co, which is a partnership firm. It is providing passenger transportation services by omnibus through a e-commerce operator like Redbus to the recipient. Who will pay GST? E-commerce operator. Why? Because the person providing passenger transportation services by omnibus is other than company. So here also who will pay the GST? E-commerce entity only is having an obligation to pay the GST. Understood? First two cases able to understand. Now let us see few more cases. Third kind of service where the GST has to be paid by e-commerce operator. Services by way of providing accommodation in hotels, inns, guest house, club, campsite or other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purposes, except where the person supplying such service through e-commerce operator is liable for registration under section 22 subsection 1. Now what is this? So now what they are trying to say, listen carefully. Now they are talking about providing of services relating to accommodation in a hotel. Take for example Oyo is there. Now there is one hotel. Okay, this hotel is providing services of accommodation to a recipient, but not directly through the e-commerce operator. Now who will pay the GST? Generally e-commerce operator will pay GST unless the person whoever is providing the services is liable for registration under section 22 subsection 1. which means if the hotel which is actually providing the services through the e-commerce platform, if it is liable for registration under 22 subsection 1, that means its aggregate turnover has exceeded the applicable threshold limit. Now they are liable for registration. No, in case if the hotel is liable for registration, they are not telling hotel should be registered. Even if it is liable for registration, hotel only will pay the GST. In case, let me give you this scenario in a complete perspective. So take for example, OYO is that some hotel is providing services through the e-commerce platform through the e-commerce platform to the recipient. Now this hotel is not liable for registration. This hotel is not liable for registration. That means its aggregate turnover its aggregate turnover did not exceed the applicable threshold limit, be it 10 lakhs or 20 lakh rupees, whatever it is. They are not liable for registration. Then who will pay the GST? E-commerce operator will pay the GST. Take for example another case. There is a hotel. It is providing services of accommodation in a hotel through the e-commerce operator to the recipient. But here the hotel is liable for registration. Their aggregate turnover has exceeded the applicable threshold limit. They might not have obtained registration, but they are liable for registration. Hence, they are liable for registration. In this case, e-commerce operator will not pay the GST. Who will pay the GST? This hotel supplier only will pay the GST. Clear? So that is what the third kind of service which is notified. Service by way of providing accommodation in hotels, inns, guest house, clubs, campsites or other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purposes, where the person supplying such service through e-commerce operator except where the person supplying the service through e-commerce operator is liable for registration. That means if the person supplying that hotel services is liable for registration, he will only pay the GST. In case if the hotel which is providing that accommodation services is not liable for registration, then e-commerce operator will pay the GST. Next one. Services by way of housekeeping such as plumbing, carpenting, etc. except where the person supplying such service through e-commerce operator is liable for registration under section 22 subsection 1. Once again, the same kind of point only. Now they are talking about housekeeping services. Take for example, Urban Clap. Urban Clap. Now there is one supplier. There is one carpenter. There is one carpenter. Now this carpenter is providing services through Urban Clap, which is an e-commerce operator, to one recipient. Now who will pay GST? That depends on, is this carpenter liable for registration? Yes, if the carpenter is liable for registration under 22 subsection 1, his aggregate turnover has exceeded the applicable threshold limit. In that case, carpenter only will pay the GST to the government. However, the carpenter or plumber or other kind of housekeeping services are provided through e-commerce operator to the recipient, but this person is not liable for registration. His aggregate turnover did not exceed the applicable threshold limit. Then who will pay the GST? E-commerce operator will pay the GST. Then who will pay the GST? E-commerce operator will pay the GST. Clear? Guys, four kind of services I have told, where if these services are provided through e-commerce operator, the tax will be paid by e-commerce operator. What are they? Number one. Let me make a separate note here. Let me write it somewhere here. So 9 subsection 5, where the tax is required to be paid by e-commerce operator. Number 1, services of transportation of passengers except omnibus, right? Number 2, transportation of passengers through omnibus, and the supplier is other than company. The supplier should not be company. Third case, supply of accommodation in hotel. Accommodation in hotel. Except one, supplier liable for registration. Supplier should not have been liable for registration. If the supplier is not liable for registration, then e-commerce operator will pay GST. So supplier should not be liable for registration. Fourth one, providing housekeeping services. Providing housekeeping services. Same case, supplier should not be liable for registration. So there is one more category of service under which e-commerce operators required to pay the services. Supply of restaurant services other than services supplied by restaurant or eating joints located at specified premises. So even supply of restaurant services through the e-commerce operator also covered under 9 subsection 5. So except the restaurant services or eating joints located at specified premises. I will come to what is the specified premises later. First, let us try to understand the context here. So the context here is, now they are talking about Zomato, Swiggy, these kind of things. So Zomato is an e-commerce operator. There is one restaurant. There is one restaurant. Now this restaurant is providing food through Zomato to the recipient. Now they are telling, since the supply of restaurant services is happening through the e-commerce operator, it is getting covered under 9 subsection 5. In this case, Zomato is required to pay the tax under, GST. E-commerce operator is required to pay the GST. However, except when these restaurants are located at specified premises. Sir, what is this specified premises? Specified premises would mean providing hotel accommodation service having declared tariff of any unit of accommodation above 7,500 per unit per day or equivalent. Sir, what is this? So what exactly is the meaning of this provision is? So let me try to explain it here by adding one more page. So what they're trying to say here, let me try to explain it with the help of simple scenario. Assume that there is a restaurant, okay, but this restaurant is located in some hotel. For example, assume it is located in Novotel. This restaurant is actually located in Novotel, and in the Novotel, the room rent charged will be per unit per day. The rate for accommodation is more than 7,500. So there is a restaurant located at Novotel, and in the Novotel, for each room per day, the accommodation charges are more than 7,500. And at this Novotel, a restaurant is located. Now, this restaurant is providing food through Zomato, which is a e-commerce operator, to the recipient. Sir, who will pay GST in this case? Since this is a restaurant located at specified premises, in this case, e-commerce operator will not pay the GST. This restaurant is only required to pay the GST. This restaurant is only required to pay GST. However, there is a normal restaurant There is a normal restaurant which is not located at any hotel accommodation, or this is a normal restaurant where even though it is located in the hotel, per day the room rental charges are less than or equal to 7,500. If such a restaurant is providing that restaurant services over the e-commerce platform like Zomato or Swiggy, in this case, the e-commerce operator Zomato is required to pay the GST to the government. Able to understand? So the fifth category of service under which the GST is required to be paid by e-commerce operator is supply of restaurant services, except the services supplied by restaurant or eating joints located at specified premises. Sir, what are specified premises? Those premises providing hotel accommodation where they have a declared tariff of any unit or accommodation above 7,500 per unit per day. Nothing but they are mainly talking about these 5-star hotels and all, where the tariff per room per day is 7,500. If at such premises, if an hotel is located and that hotel is providing restaurant services over the e-commerce operator, then the liability will not be there on the e-commerce operator to pay the GST. Then the liability will be there on the specified restaurant only to pay the GST. Clear? Understood? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Now, so let us make a summary. So what does 9 subsection 5 say? So once again, I am writing the summary here. Very, very important, guys. That's why I'm repeating these many number of times. So 9 subsection 5 says, if certain services are provided through e-commerce operator, the liability to pay GST will be there on the e-commerce operator. E-commerce operator will pay the GST, not the supplier. Sir, what are that services? Number 1, services of transportation of passengers other than omnibus. Okay. Second case, transportation of passengers by omnibus where the supplier is other than company. Clear? Third one, supply of hotel accommodation services through the e-commerce operator. Hotel accommodation services through the e-commerce operator, except when other than cases where supplier is liable for registration. That means if the supplier is liable for registration, supplier only will pay the GST, other than the cases where supplier is liable for registration. Fourth one, housekeeping services provided through e-commerce operator. Here also, other than the cases where supplier is liable for registration. Fifth one, supply of restaurant services. Other than restaurants located at other than specified premises. Sir, what is a specified premise? Where per day accommodation charges are declared tariff of 7,500 per unit per day. If the restaurant is located at such premises, e-commerce operator will not have the obligation to pay the GST. That specific restaurant service only has to collect from the recipient and pay it to the government. Clear? And one more thing, guys, when I say e-commerce operator is only required to pay the GST, that doesn't mean e-commerce operator will pay it from his own pocket. What e-commerce operator will do is, once again, he will collect from the recipient, only he will pay. See, when I say in these cases, e-commerce operator is required to pay the GST to the government, don't assume that e-commerce operator will pay from his own pocket. No. See, normal cases, supplier will collect from the recipient, pay to the government. No. In the same manner, e-commerce operator also will collect it from the recipient and pay it to the government. Clear? In both the cases, either supplier pays it or e-commerce operator pays it, ultimate burden will be on recipient only. But who is depositing the tax with the government is changing. That's all. Clear? So that is what 9 subsection 5 actually talks about. That is what 9 subsection 5 actually talks about. Now we have some associated concepts related with e-commerce operator. Now we have some associated concepts related with e-commerce operator. Let us try to complete that also in one go. In single sitting, we'll try to cover all the things. So here I would like to explain one more thing which we have understood in the regular classes. See, we understood the chapter TDS and TCS. We have understood a chapter called TDS and TCS. So there we have specifically understood TCS. Sir, who is required to collect TCS? A e-commerce operator through whom the goods and services are getting supplied through a e-commerce operator to the recipients. So there is a supplier who is supplying the goods or services through the e-commerce operator to the recipient, where the consideration is received by the e-commerce operator. What the e-commerce operator should do is, for example, the goods sold is a good worth 1 lakh was sold through the e-commerce operator. Now, generally what will happen is the supplier will send the order through the e-commerce operator to the recipient. Recipient will pay the consideration. No? First consideration will come to e-commerce operator. 1 lakh rupees of consideration will be collected by e-commerce operator. And Act says that, GST Act says that e-commerce operator should not remit full amount of money to the supplier. They will deduct their commission. Along with that, they are also required to collect something called TCS at the rate of 1%. E-commerce operator, see, this is actually told in the provisions of GST. So GST acts as, even we have discussed it in the GST chapter, in the last chapter also, in our regular classes when we discuss the TDS and TCS. There I have covered the TCS in a detailed manner, but I'm telling you gist of the provision. So all these things are actually covered in section 52 of the GST Act. So what section 52 has actually told? In case if the goods and services are supplied through the e-commerce operator, and if the consideration is received by the e-commerce operator, then the e-commerce operator, what it has to do is they have to collect a TCS at the rate of 1%, balance only they will pay to the supplier. And whatever TCS they have collected, take for example 1 lakh into 1%, 1000 rupees they will deduct. Sir, now what the e-commerce operator will do to this 1000 rupees? E-commerce operator should not enjoy with this money. E-commerce operator should deposit with the GST department against the supplier's GSTN number. So e-commerce operator should collect TCS at the rate of 1%, deposit with the GST department against the GSTN number of the supplier. Now what the supplier can do is, supplier will declare his output tax liability. From that output tax liability, he can take the credit of the TCS which has been deducted. TCS has been deducted from his account now. So that will be reflected in the supplier's returns. Now what he can do is, he can take that TCS as an adjustment. He can take that as a credit in his electronic cash ledger. So whatever TCS has been deducted, that can be availed as a credit. Take for example his output tax liability. This supplier will file the GSTR1. No, when he filed the GSTR1, for example, as per GSTR1 and all, his output tax liability is 3000 rupees. Will he pay entire 3000 rupees in cash? No. From that, what he can do is he can avail the credit of TCS. E-commerce operator from you has collected 1% and paid it with the GST department. No, that 1000 rupees you can avail it as a credit from your output tax liability. Able to understand? So this is what GST Act says, e-commerce operator through which goods and services are getting supplied, and where the consideration is received by the e-commerce operator. On that consideration, they have to collect the TCS at the rate of 1%. Right? But however, if the services getting supplied through the e-commerce operator are falling under 9 subsection 5, in these cases, there is no requirement to collect TCS. If these services are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator, there is no requirement to collect the TCS. Sir, why here there is no requirement to collect the TCS? Why? Because in case of these services, anyhow supplier will not have obligation to pay the GST. Who will have the obligation to pay the GST? E-commerce operator only will have the obligation to pay the GST. See, in other than these 5 cases, generally what will happen is supplier will be liable to pay the GST. So that's why e-commerce operator will deduct the TCS that can be claimed as a credit by supplier. But in these 5 cases, the supplier will not pay the GST. E-commerce operator is only having an obligation to pay the GST. That's why they have to they have told that when the services covered under 9 subsection 5 are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator, then the e-commerce operator is not required to deduct the TCS. In other services, in case if other goods and services are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator, on that they will deduct the TCS. Clear? So let me summarize. Whatever I'm trying to say here. So goods and services are getting supplied through e-commerce operator. Then we need to check in case if the goods or services which are getting supplied through e-commerce operator are covered under 9 subsection 5, where e-commerce operator himself will have an obligation to pay the GST. In these cases, TCS requirements will not become applicable. In these circumstances, the e-commerce operator need not deduct the TCS. Other than 9 subsection 5, other than that 5 services which we have covered under 9 subsection 5, if any other goods and services are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator and the e-commerce operator has considered the consideration, then on that entire consideration, whatever they have received, they will collect the TCS at the rate of 1%. Clear? Now, in the registration chapter, they have told that every e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS at the rate of 1%, they are required to get compulsory registration. The persons who are the e-commerce operator who are compulsory registration. So let me write it here. So those e-commerce operators who are required to deduct TCS at the rate of 1% on the consideration received by them, they are required to take compulsory registration. Able to understand till here? So what I told about e-commerce operator, I told about 9 subsection 5, I told TCS applicability, and now I made the point that every e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS at the rate of 1% must require to get compulsory registration under GST. They are required to get the compulsory registration under GST. So that's what we have seen here. See, if you see this point, every e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 is required to take compulsory registration. So if you are an e-commerce operator and if you are required to take TCS at the rate of 1%, you are mandatorily required to take compulsory registration. And the act has gone one more level. Every e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, he will get compulsory registered. In addition to that, every person whoever is making supply of goods or services through the e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS under section 52, they are also required to get compulsorily registered. Able to understand the summary? So first act told every e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 required to obtain compulsory registration. Then they told that every supplier who is making a supply of goods or services through the e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, even those suppliers are also required to take compulsory registration. Those suppliers who are making supply of goods or services through the e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS under section 52, even those suppliers are also required to get compulsorily registered. This initially the act has told. But later they felt that even today e-commerce platform has increased a lot. E-commerce platform has reached beyond to every customer. Even small people are also supplying their goods through e-commerce operator. Take a case of Meesho. See, most of the suppliers who are selling the goods through e-commerce operator like Meesho are generally small suppliers, very small businessmen. So the act thought that if we make the compulsory registration requirement for these persons who are supplying goods or services through the e-commerce operator, this will discourage the e-commerce platform in the industry. Why? Because small suppliers don't want to get stuck in that compliances and all. They don't want to get themselves registered. They don't want to file the returns and all. Why? Because they're small businessmen. So understanding this, what they have told is they have come up with relaxation. Initially, they told every supplier who is supplying goods or services through the e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, they are required to make compulsory registration, they have told. But later they gave a relaxation. Initially, they gave a relaxation to the person whoever is providing services. If you are providing services through the e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS under section 52, you are not required to obtain compulsory registration. You can enjoy that limit of 20 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees. If you are making a supply from that specific special category states, then the limit will be 20 lakh rupees MMNT. If you remember our regular classes, MMNT. If you are supplying the services from MMNT, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. If you are making supply of services through that any of the 4 special category states up to a turnover of 10 lakh rupees, you are not required to take registration. If you are making supply from any other states up to a registration up to a turnover of 20 lakh rupees, you are not required to take registration. So they gave a relaxation first for the supplier of services who are supplying services through the e-commerce platform, which is required to deduct TCS under section 52. Now they are not required to obtain registration until their aggregate turnover is within the applicable threshold limit. Initially, they gave relaxation for person making supply of services. Then even the person supplying goods also raised a concern before the GST department. Sir, you are giving relaxation to the person who is making services up to a applicable threshold limit. What mistake we have done? We are also small business only. You give relaxation for us also. Then the government told, okay, even if you are supplying goods through the e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, even you are also not required to obtain registration if your aggregate turnover is within the applicable threshold limit of 40, 20 or 10. So if you remember, applicable limit in the case of registration, in some cases we will, if the person is exclusively engaged in the supply of goods, he will get the applicable threshold limit of 40. No. So if your aggregate turnover is within the applicable threshold limit, even you are also not required to take the registration in case if you are providing goods to the e-commerce operator who is required to deduct TCS under section 51. Able to understand? So this is the background, guys. So I explained you TCS requirements. Then I told every e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 is required to obtain compulsory registration. Then initially government told every supplier of goods or services who is required to collect TCS, who are making the supplies through the e-commerce operator. Okay, let me rephrase it. Every supplier of goods or services who is supplying the goods through such e-commerce operator who is collecting TCS under section 52, they are also required to take compulsory registration. Initially, they gave exemption to the person providing services. They told, okay, if you are a person providing supply of services through the e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, you need not obtain registration provided if your aggregate turnover is within the applicable threshold limit. Then even the person supplying goods also made a representation before the GST department, and GST department gave even relaxation for the person who is supplying goods also. Clear? So that's what we'll be able to find it here. So if you have a look at it, so initially they told every e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 is required to obtain compulsory registration. Then they are telling persons who supply goods or services other than services specified under 9 subsection 5 through such e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under section 52 are also required to take compulsory registration. See, if you are providing any of the services specified under 9 subsection 5, then the e-commerce operator will not collect TCS. Then you are not required to obtain registration. Guys, if you, I hope you are able to pay the attention. This concept is a little bit advanced, but I'm taking it slow to give you so many examples. See, the act is only telling those suppliers who are making supply of goods or services through e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS. They are only required to take registration. If there is an e-commerce operator who is not required to collect TCS under section 52, and if you are supplying goods or services through that e-commerce operator, then there is no requirement to take registration. Like if the e-commerce operator is providing services, is allowing only 9 subsection 5. Take for example Zomato, Swiggy. They are providing services of restaurant services only, which are notified under 9 subsection 5. Now Swiggy, Zomato are not required to deduct TCS under 9 subsection 5. Sorry, they are not required to deduct TCS under section 52. If you are providing services through such e-commerce operator who is not required to deduct TCS, then there is no mandatory requirement of registration. The mandatory requirement of registration exists only when you are supplying goods or services through a e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS. For them only there is a mandatory registration. So initially they told this, persons who supply goods or services other than supply specified under 9 subsection 5 through such e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 are required to take compulsory registration. Initially they told this, but later, as I have told, they come up with relaxation. So however, they gave a relaxation. However, threshold limit of 20 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees in case of Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur and Nagaland is available in case of supplier of services through e-commerce operator. So initially government gave the relaxation. Okay, if you are supplying services through the e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52, you are not required to obtain compulsory registration provided if your aggregate turnover is within these limits. Initially, they gave relaxation only for services, but later, as I have told, the person supplying goods through e-commerce operators also came and did a request. Then the government extended relaxation even for the supplier who are engaged in the supply of goods. So with effect from 1/10/2023, notification number 34/2023 dated 31/7/2023 provided that the person making supply of goods through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS under section 52 and having an aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year and also in current financial year not exceeding the threshold limit in accordance with the provisions of section 22 subsection 1, that is the limit of 40 20 10, whatever it is applicable. If your aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year and also in the current financial year did not exceed that applicable threshold limit, if they are making supply through the e-commerce operator required to collect TCS, even they are also exempted from registration, but subject to some conditions. You are required to comply with some conditions. So if you are a supplier of goods, if your aggregate turnover is within the applicable threshold limit, and if in case if you are making the supply of goods through the e-commerce operator required to collect TCS under 52, you are exempted from registration, but you have to comply with some conditions. Sir, what are the conditions which are required to be complied with? Number 1, such person shall not make any interstate supply of goods. See, if you make interstate supply of goods, you become liable for compulsory registration. So that's why you should not make any interstate supply of goods. Why? Because if you make any interstate supply of goods, you become liable for compulsory registration under section 24. Next, such person shall not make supply of goods through e-commerce operator in more than one state or union territory. So directly you should not make interstate supply. You should not make interstate supply even through e-commerce operator. If you are making supply of goods through e-commerce operator, you have to do it in the same state. So you should not do the supply of goods through e-commerce operators to other states. Next one, such person shall be required to have a PAN issued under Income Tax Act. So the person whoever is supplying the goods through e-commerce operator and who wants to enjoy this exemption, he must have a PAN number. And such person shall, before making any supply of goods through e-commerce operator on the common portal, on the GST portal, if you want to enjoy the exemption, before you make the supply through the e-commerce operator, you have to declare, you have to mention your PAN number in the GST portal. You have to mention the address of your place of business, state or union territory in which person seeks to make such supply, in which state you are making the supply, which shall be subject to validation on the common portal. That means if you want to enjoy that exemption of not taking registration, before you make the supply through the e-commerce operator, you have to declare your PAN number, you have to declare your address, you have to declare the state or union territory from which you are making the supply, and all these details will be validated on the common portal. And even you will be given an enrollment number. See, if you go for regular registration, you will get GSTN number. But for these kind of people, the department told, we will give you enrollment number on the common portal on successful validation of PAN. And such person shall not be granted more than one enrollment number. You will get only one enrollment number in one state. No supply of goods shall be made by such person through e-commerce operator unless such persons have granted an enrollment number on the common portal. Unless you get that enrollment number, you can't make the supply through the e-commerce platform. And in case you subsequently become liable for registration, and if you have been granted registration, your enrollment number will be cancelled and you will get the GSTN number. So in case if you want to enjoy the exemption of supplying the goods through e-commerce operator without registration, you have to get the enrollment number from the GST portal. And in case if you later become liable for registration and if you obtain the registration, your enrollment number will be cancelled and you will get a GSTN number. Clear? So all these conditions you have to comply in case you want to enjoy the exemption of registration. Clear? So this is what the amendment. This is actually the recent amendment. The relaxation given to supplier of goods is a recent amendment. Relaxation given to the supplier is there from a long period of time. Clear? Understood, everybody? Comfortable? Shall we proceed further? I think there should be one more thing. One more thing is there here. Yeah, this one. So there's one more related amendment regarding TCS. Let me try to cover that also. Details of TCS furnished by the e-commerce operator to make available electronically only to the registered person. See, what is this? I will tell you. Simple one only. We'll try to explain. See, I told that there is a supplier. He's supplying goods through e-commerce operator to the recipient. I told e-commerce operator is required to collect TCS. The TCS, what he will do, he will pay it with the GST department, mentioning the GSTN number of the supplier. And whatever TCS that has been deposited against this supplier, this will be reflected in his common portal. In the supplier, when the supplier logs into his common portal, GST portal, whatever TCS that has been deducted against this person, that will be reflected in the common portal. He can take that as a credit in the electronic cash ledger. Now, earlier what used to happen is, earlier they told only registered person. So the persons whoever are required to, the person whoever is supplying the goods or services through the e-commerce operator, they are requiring compulsory registration. So that's why earlier what used to happen is, all the suppliers who are supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, they will obtain mandatory registration. And what would have happened is, whatever TCS that is getting deposited with the government, that will be reflected in the every supplier's common portal. Why? Because every supplier is a registered. But now, just as I have told, there is a relaxation given now. You can supply the goods through e-commerce platform even without obtaining registration. So that's why going forward, what will happen is the TCS which is deposited with the income tax department, see, TCS will be collected from registered person also, TCS will be collected from unregistered person also. But the details of TCS collected will be reflected only in the registered person's common portal. It will not be reflected in unregistered person's portal. Why? Because you will not have any output tax liability only. If you are an unregistered person, you don't have output tax liability. No. When you want the TCS details in your common portal, when you have a output tax liability. So earlier what used to happen is, since there is a requirement of mandatory registration, whatever TCS that has been collected, that will be reflected in every supplier's account. But now, since because of relaxation, even unregistered persons also will make supply through e-commerce platform, and from them also TCS will be collected, but the details of TCS collected will be made available only to the registered suppliers. It will not be made available to unregistered suppliers. Why? Because if you are an unregistered person, you will not have any output tax liability. There is no requirement to show you what is the TCS deducted. Why? Because you can't anyhow claim it. Understood? But for registered persons, it will be reflected. Why? Because they can claim that as a credit in their electronic cash ledger and adjust it against their output tax liability. Hope you guys are able to understand whatever I'm trying to say here. So the same thing they say here. Amended rule 67 subsection 2 67 subrule 2 provides as follows: the details of tax collected at source under section 52 subsection 1 furnished by the e-commerce operator shall be made available electronically to each of the registered suppliers, registered, see here, to each of only registered suppliers on the common portal after filing of form GSTR 8 for claiming of the amount of tax collected in his electronic cash ledger. Nothing but e-commerce operator, when they deposit the TCS with the government, no, they will file GSTR 8. On the basis of that GSTR 8, these details furnished by the e-commerce operator in the GSTR 8, that will be reflected in the supplier's account. But going forward, it will be reflected only in the registered person's account. It will not be reflected in the unregistered person's account. Clear? Understood? So this is what the amendment which is there in TCS chapter. So with this, we have covered most of the things related to TCS provision. Let me see, anything else is there? No, not actually. So these are the various associated provisions relating to TCS. Clear, everybody? So let us try to proceed further with the subsequent chapters. Right. Yeah. So next, what else we have? Place of supply, we'll come to that later. Place of supply will come back. So there is one small amendment in the time of supply. So this one we will cover. So this one small amendment is actually relating to specified actionable claims. Specified actionable claims. So if you remember, I told that actionable claims, if they are specified actionable claims, that will come under GST purview. And if you remember, goods includes actionable claims also. So when someone is supplying actionable claims, they are actually making supply of goods. And whatever other than specified actionable claims are there, those are actually exempted. So if specified actionable claims are getting supplied, actionable claims also will fall under goods only. So supply of actionable claims leads to supply of goods. On that, GST will come. Now talking about time of supply. Sir, what will be the time of supply in case of supply of goods? If you remember, if we go back to the time of supply chapter, very interesting thing, guys, pay attention. See how much deep we are going. So that's why the people are liking our GST classes. This is what the connectivity which will be there in our chapter, in our lectures. So if you try to link it in this way and if you try to connect it this way, the concept gets registered in your brain for a long period of time. That is our whole intention actually. So we want you to enjoy the lectures. Hope you are doing it. So let me go to the time of supply. Yes, no, this is actually, yeah, this is the time of supply. Sir, in case of supply of goods, what will be the time of supply? If you remember, initially they told that in the main provision, they told that in case of supply of goods, the time of supply will be, where is it? Yes, this one. So time of supply in case of forward charge mechanism, in case if you are making supply of goods, what will be the time of supply? They told that the time of supply will be the date of invoice or last date for issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, that will be the date, that will be the time of supply. So what initially they told us, please follow it. 12 subsection 2, it says that in case of supply of goods, time of supply will be date of invoice. Whatever is the date of invoice, that date of invoice or last date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, that will be treated as the time of supply. But later we have also read one notification. In that notification, the government has actually gave relaxation to the person whoever is making supply of goods. They told that they have released one notification. This also we have discussed in our regular class. The government has released a notification that the supplier of goods need not pay the tax in case of receipt of advance. In case of receipt of advance. So because of that notification, what has actually happened is, in case of goods, the date of receipt of payment is no longer a criteria. So in case of supply of goods, what practically will happen is the time of supply will be either the date of invoice or last date for issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. So this has become completely irrelevant. Initially in the 12 subsection 2, they have told in case of supply of goods, the time of supply will be date of issue of invoice, last date for issue of invoice, or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So in case if you receive the payment earlier than the invoice, you have to pay the GST on that. Earlier, much earlier, you have to pay the GST. But initially, what they have done is they have given a notification that in case of supply of goods, you need not consider this date of receipt. That means what the GST Act has told us is, in the case of supply of goods, the time of supply will be either the date of invoice or last date of issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. This is what the existing provision. I did not explain you any amendment. I explained you just existing provision. This is what the existing provision says. But now what they have told is, just we have seen in the supply chapter, they told specified actionable claims. They will be treated as supply of goods now. And this relaxation of ignoring date of receipt of payment will not become applicable in the case of specified actionable claims. That means if you are providing specified actionable claims like lottery, betting, gambling, casinos, horse racing, and online money gaming, if you are providing these kind of actionable claims, this is supply of goods only. But in case of supply of specified actionable claims, the time of supply will be date of invoice, date or last date for issue of invoice, or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, this provision will be applicable. So the relaxation which they have given to ignore the date of receipt of payment, the relaxation which they have given for supply of goods, no need to pay the GST when you collected the advance, that has been removed in case if the specified actionable claims are getting supplied. In case of specified actionable claims, this relaxation has been withdrawn. So in case of specified actionable claims, in case if you have received advance much before the invoice, you have to pay the GST much earlier. Even before the invoice, you have to pay the GST to the government. Understood? That's all, guys. So that is what even they try to say here. If you read it, notification number 66/2017 dated 15/11/2017 was earlier issued to exempt all registered persons from the requirement of payment of tax at the time of receipt of advances in case of supply of goods, and provides for payment of tax in such cases as per the time of supply as specified in 12 subsection 2 clause A, that is either the date of invoice or last date of issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. So initially the government gave this relaxation, exempting all the people who are making supply of goods to not need to pay the tax at the time of receipt of advance. They can pay the tax when actually invoice is getting issued or last date of issue of invoice. This relaxation has been given for the persons who are in supply of goods. But this has been revoked. This exemption has been made not applicable in case if the specified actionable claims are getting supplied. So in case if the specified actionable claims are getting supplied, and if you receive the advance payment, you have to pay the tax at the time of receiving the advance only. Clear? So that's what they're trying to say here. With effect from 1/10/2023, the said notification has been amended to exclude a registered person making supply of specified actionable claims from the said exemption, so that in case of specified actionable claims, the tax can be paid, has to be paid actually. The tax shall be paid at the time of receipt for such supplies by the supplier. That means you did not give the invoice, you have just received the advance. Yes, at the time of receipt of the advance only, you become liable to pay the GST. The relaxation which you used to get in the case of supply of goods, that has been removed for the persons who is making supply of specified actionable claims. Able to understand? So important from the examination perspective. This is also one amendment which is related to specified actionable claims. This I should have covered along with the specified actionable claims, but somehow this got missed out. Now I have covered it. So we have covered the amendments relating to time of supply as well. So what else we are left with? Okay, so now we will try to cover the amendments relating to place of supply. Let us try to understand the amendments relating to place of supply now. So now let us talk about the amendments relating to place of supply chapter. Very, very simple ones, not at all complicated. I will try to summarize it in a simple way. Let us pay attention. See, when it comes to the place of supply chapter, there has been one slight amendment in section 10. See, section 10 is a section which is section 10 is actually talking about how to determine place of supply in case of supply of goods in case other than imports and exports. In case if there is any supply of goods happening other than imports and exports, how to determine place of supply, that is actually covered under section 10. And in the section 10 also, we have so many clauses there. So like if you go to the place of supply chapter, just give me a moment. Okay, this is returns, GST practitioner, payment of taxes. Yeah. So if you see here, section 10 actually talking about how to determine place of supply of goods in case of other than supply of goods imported into or exported from India. So in that various cases we have like how to determine place of supply in case supply is involving movement of the goods. In case of bill to ship to transactions, how to determine place of supply. In case of supply not involving movement, how to determine place of supply. So like this various circumstances are there. Now to this section 10, they have added one more clause, 10 subsection 1 clause CA they have added, which is talking about how to determine place of supply in case if the goods are supplied to a non-registered person, that is if the recipient is an unregistered person and typically he is coming from another state, buying the goods and taking the goods back to another state. In that cases, what will be the supply? Able to understand? So let me give you one simple example. Take for example, there is one supplier, okay, or let me put it this way, there is one car showroom, some Hyundai showroom is there, okay. This Hyundai showroom is actually located in Bangalore location. Now take for example a person, this commercial taxes or road taxes we will take, okay. So let me put it this way. So take for example, there is one Hyundai showroom and this Hyundai showroom is there in Pondicherry. So now what is happening is, assume there is one person in Hyderabad. If he wants to buy one Hyundai car, if he buys it in the Hyderabad location, what actually will happen is, in Hyderabad location the taxes are bit high. This road taxes and all are bit high. The car will cost him little bit higher. However, he could spend some time. He will go to the Pondicherry, and if he buys the car there, and if he gets it registered in the Pondicherry state, then the taxes will be low. So he want to save some taxes. He want to save the price actually. So if he buys, I'm not talking about GST guys. GST rate will be uniform. I'm talking about the road taxes and all. If you buy the vehicle, you need to pay a lot of road taxes, registration charges and all will be there. So a person from Hyderabad who is actually an unregistered person, he is traveling all the way to Pondicherry. He is buying the car there in order to save that registration and road taxes. And once he buys the vehicle there, he will bring back to the Hyderabad. Will bring it back to Hyderabad. So in these cases, how to determine place of supply? Or in some other cases, what will happen is, take for example, there is Goa. So a tourist from Chennai has went to Goa, bought some items there, and after buying it there, after he completed his tour, he brought that items back to Chennai. And this person is an unregistered person. In these cases, how to determine the place of supply? Able to understand? So in these cases, how to determine the place of supply where the recipient is unregistered person, he is coming to some other state, buying the goods and takes it back along with him to his respective state. In these cases, how to determine the place of supply? To clarify on this point, they have added this new clause actually, 10 subsection 1 clause CA. So if you read this note point here, the above covers the cases where an unregistered person purchases the goods over the counter in one state and thereafter transport the goods to another state, generally the state where he resides. For instance, migrant workers, tourists, etc., who come to a state for work, tourism, etc., and purchase the goods in the state to take it to the respective state. Similarly, in automobile sector, the residents of a state may travel to another state to purchase the vehicle from that state to take advantage of lower registration charges and road tax. which vary from state to state and thereafter take the vehicle back to their state. So in these cases, how to determine place of supply? That is actually covered in 10 subsection 1 clause CA. Let us see what they are saying. Where the supply of goods is made to a person other than registered person. That means recipient is an unregistered person. The place of supply shall, the place of supply shall, notwithstanding anything contained in clause A or clause C. See, clause A, clause C talks about what if there is a movement of goods, what if there is a no movement of the goods. That is explained in clause A and clause C. So ignoring whatever has been mentioned in clause A or clause C, ignore whatever has been told in clause A and clause C. Which clause A and clause C? Ignore whatever has been told in clause 10 subsection 1 clause A and clause C. In case if the supply of goods is happening to an unregistered person, then the place of supply shall be the location as per the address of the said person recorded in the invoices issued in respect of the said supply. Nothing but in the invoice, the supplier will record the address of that recipient. No, that location of the supplier, the location of the recipient as recorded in the invoice, that will be the place of supply. In case if the address is not recorded in the invoice, in those circumstances, the location of the supplier, where the address of the said person is not recorded in the invoice. Very simple, guys. So what they are trying to say here, assume that let us take this case only. Hyundai showroom is there, which is there in Pondicherry location. A person is traveling from Hyderabad, went to that location, bought the car. Now this person will give the invoice. No, in the invoice, take for example, they have recorded the recipient's name. Along with the recipient's name, they have recorded the recipient address also. They have told the recipient address is Hyderabad. So Hyderabad has been mentioned. So in that case, for this transaction, since the location of the recipient is recorded in the invoice, the place of supply will be Hyderabad. The place of supply will be Hyderabad. So here the location of the supply is in Pondicherry and place of supply as per the invoice is Hyderabad. It will be a interstate supply. IGST will be collected. However, assume that this supplier has made the supply of this car. He gave the invoice. In that invoice, the recipient's name is only there, but address is not available. Address was not recorded in the invoice. In those circumstances, the location of the supplier only will be treated as place of supply. So if that is the case, location of the supply is Pondicherry, place of supply is also Pondicherry. It will be an intrastate supply. If it is the intrastate supply, what will be levied? CGST and SGST will be levied. Able to understand? But you have to remember carefully, this provision will become applicable only when the recipient is unregistered. If the recipient is registered, you have to go by clause A and clause C. Whether the supply involves movement or doesn't involve movement, you have to go by clause A and clause C. This particular clause CA will become applicable only in case if the recipient is unregistered. Only if the recipient is unregistered. Hope you guys are able to understand. So very simple, the same thing they say here. If I read it once again, where the supply of goods is made to a person other than registered person. This case only talks about when the recipient is an unregistered person. If the recipient is unregistered person, ignore whatever has been mentioned in clause A and clause C. Ignore whatever has been told in clause A and clause C and follow this new clause CA. That means you have to follow whatever has been mentioned in clause A and clause C if the recipient is a registered person. So if you remember, we have charts here. We have explained the place of supply entire chapter in the form of charts, if you remember. So if you see here, clause A talks about when the supply is involving movement of the goods. And clause C talks about when the supply is not involving movement of the goods. They are telling you follow this clause A and clause C only when the recipient is registered. So if you, in case if the supply is happening to unregistered person, ignore whatever has been mentioned in clause A and clause C and follow only this new clause 10 subsection 1 clause CA, which says in those circumstances the place of supply will be in case if the recipient address is available in the invoice, that will be the place of supply. In case if the recipient address is not available, is not recorded in the invoice, then the location of the supplier will be the place of supply. Understood? Sir, when I say in the invoice, recipient address should be recorded, should his full address be recorded? Not required. So for that, they have added explanation here. For the purpose of this clause, recording of the name of the state of the said person in the invoice shall be deemed to be the recording of the address. So when I say in the invoice, the address of the recipient should be recorded, need not be full address. Just if you mention the state of that recipient, that itself will be considered as complete address. Why? Because we only need state to determine whether the supply is a interstate supply or intrastate supply. So when I say address of the recipient should be available, we need not have complete address of the recipient. If the state of that recipient is mentioned, that alone will be enough. In case if state name is also not mentioned, then the location of supplier will be the place of supply. Understood? So this is one new clause which they have added under 10 subsection 1 clause CA to determine the place of supply in case of supply of goods to an unregistered person. Understood? Now we have one more circular. Clarifying the place of supply, they have given one circular. Let us try to explain. See, first I will try to read whatever they are trying to say. Then I will give you gist of that provision, gist of the circular. Then we will read it. So first we will read the introduction. Advertising companies are often involved in procuring space on hoardings or billboards erected and mounted on the buildings or lands in different states from various suppliers for providing advertisement services to its corporate clients. There may be a variety of arrangements, and how to determine place of supply in case of variety of arrangements, let us try to understand. Interesting thing, guys. Take for example, there is one company X Limited. There is one company X Limited. They have entered into an agreement with advertising company. They have entered into an advertising company. Okay. So this company, this corporate company has, so let me put it this way. Let me rephrase the example. Guys, please pay attention. Will not take more time, 5 to 7 minutes. I will try to make this circular so easy, so comfortable with the help of this example. Please pay complete attention. So assume that there is one corporate company. There is one corporate company. X Limited is there. It went to one advertising company. It went to one advertising company to do the advertising for them. So nothing but this is an advertising agency. This company will design the advertisements and provide the advertisement services. So this advertisement company is providing what? Advertisement services. What services they are providing? Advertisement services they are providing. And this company will pay consideration. This company will pay consideration. So this company told, hey, dear advertising agency, we will pay you some bulk amount of money. It is your responsibility to do the advertising for us. So you design the name, you design some big billboards, you design some big banners and display it all over the country, or display it in one specific state. So this is an advertising company which will do the advertising agency. Now, okay, this company has received the contract from him. Now they have designed the banner. Now this banner has to be published at certain place. This banner has to be published at certain billboard. So now this person is there. This person is having a vacant land. This person is having a vacant land. Now what this advertising company has done is they have taken this billboard on rent. They went to this vendor and told this vendor, sir, you have a vacant land, no? Or you have a billboard available. We will take that billboard on rent. We will pay you consideration, and this vendor has agreed to let out that billboard. Billboard or hoardings will be there, no? Big stands will be affixed on the land. So that billboard, they have taken it on rent. Now they are talking about how to determine place of supply in case of this service happening between advertising company and the vendor, billboarding or hoarding vendor. Able to understand what I'm trying to say? See, between the corporate company and this advertising company, the service happening is advertisement services. This company has went to the advertising company and told, so we want you to do the advertisement for us. We want you to do the marketing for us. Now what this advertising company has done is it has entered into another agreement with the vendor. They have designed the banner, but they have to put it on some billboard. No. So what this advertising company has done is this advertising company has went to this vendor who is the owner of this billboard. And they have taken that billboard on lease or rent, whatever it is, and they are paying the consideration to this person. Now, how to determine place of supply for the services between advertising company and vendor? It will fall under which category? It will fall under 12 subsection 3. Why? Because billboard or hoarding is an immovable property. When this advertising company has taken this billboard on lease, rent, whatever it is, they are availing the services which are directly related to immovable property. So this will be governed by 12 subsection 3. Services in relation to immovable property. So the service which is happening, the category of service which is happening between the advertising company and this vendor is not advertisement services. That is what? That is actually renting of immovable property. That is a service related to immovable property. That is not advertisement services. The contract happening between corporate client and X Limited, this is advertisement services. But the agreement happening between advertisement company and the vendor, this is not advertisement service. This is service in related to immovable property. And how to determine place of supply will be covered by 12 subsection 3, which actually says the place where the immovable property is located, that will be the place of supply. That will be place of supply. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So that's the same thing they say here. Two issues are actually involved. I told you the first thing. So if you read the issue 1, there may be a case wherein there is supply of space or supply of right to use the space on a hoarding or structure, which is actually immovable property belonging to a vendor to the client or advertising company for display of their advertisements on the said hoarding or structure. what will be the place of supply of service provided by vendor to the advertising company? Able to understand? So let us take here, advertising company is located in Hyderabad. Okay, now they want to display one advertisement in Delhi. They want to display an advertisement in Delhi. Now there is a vendor who is having a billboard. So he is having a big billboard in Delhi. He is the owner of that. Billboard. So now this advertising company has taken that on lease. They paid the consideration, and from them they have taken this right to use this hoarding, right to use this immobile property. So this will be covered by 12 subsection 3. Why? Because it is service in relation to immobile property. And 12 subsection 3 says that place of supply will be the place where the immobile property is actually located. So where immobile property is located? Delhi. Place of supply will be Delhi. Here supplier is who? This person is supplier. This advertising company is a recipient. Location of the supplier is also what? Delhi. Location of the supplier is Delhi. Place of supply is also Delhi. This person will give the invoice, no? In that invoice, what will be collected? CGST and SGST will be collected. What will be collected? CGST and SGST will be collected. Why? Because location of the supplier and place of supply both are falling under Delhi. The same thing they say there. Clarification: the hoarding or structure erected on the land should be considered as immobile structure. Whatever hoarding that you are placing on the land that is permanently attached to the land, that is immobile property. Further, the place of supply of any service provided by way of supply of space on an immobile property or grant of rights to use an immobile property shall be governed by the provisions of 12 subsection 3 clause A. So as per section 12 subsection 3 clause A of the IGST Act, the place of supply of services directly in relation to an immobile property, including services provided by architects, interior designers, surveyors, engineers, and other related experts or real estate agents, any service provided by way of grant of rights to use immobile property or for carrying out or coordination of construction shall be the location at which that immobile property is located. So ultimately the place of supply will be the location where the immobile property is located. Therefore, the place of supply of service provided by way of supply of space on hoarding or structure for advertising or for grant of right to use that hoarding or structure for advertising, in this case, would be the location where that hoarding or structure is located or situated. Understood? Now there is one more issue. There is one more issue here. Let me read this issue. There may be another case where advertisement company wants to display its advertisements on hoarding or billboards at a specific location, not directly availing the services of vendor. The responsibility of arranging the hoardings or billboards lies with the vendor, who may himself own the structure or may be taking it on rent or rights to use from another person. The vendor is responsible. Okay, let me try to summarize. For this also I will give you background. So now what they are telling is, the second issue, whatever they are telling is, listen carefully, is a corporate company X Limited. They have entered into one contract with advertising company to do the marketing and all. Now this advertising company agreed to provide advertising services. Now they have designed the banners. They don't want to display it by themselves. What they have done is they have went to another vendor, Mr. X. So this company, what advertising company has told us, hey boss, we will give you banners. We'll give you the designed banners. It is your responsibility to find the space and display it. So this company doesn't want to take the headache of going and negotiating with each of the billboard owner and display their advertisement. Advertising company doesn't want to take that headache. They just designed the banners. They went to this person, Mr. X, and they told, boss, we will give you the banner. It is your responsibility to display it at respective locations. Now what this vendor will do is, he will go to the persons who are actually the owners of that hoardings and billboards. He will take that properties on rent and he will publish that advertisement. He will attach that advertisement on the hoardings and buildings. Clear? Now they are talking about, in this case, how to determine place of supply between advertising company and this vendor. Guys, understood the difference between previous case and this case? See, in the previous case, what is happening is the advertising company itself is talking with the vendors, billboard owners directly and displaying the advertisement. But in this case, what they are telling is, advertising company has approached one more mediator. Just they will give the printed banners to this person, Mr. X. Now it is the responsibility of the Mr. X to find the owners of that billboards, to find the owners of that hoardings, and he will attach those things there. So now what is the place of supply? How to determine place of supply between this advertising company and this vendor who is there in between? Able to understand what they are trying to say here? See, when it comes to this part, when it comes to the service between Mr. X and this ultimate billboard owner, This will be covered by 12 subsection 3. Why? Because this is related to service in relation to an immovable property. So when it comes to this part between the vendor and the billboard owner and hoarding owner, that will get covered under 12 subsection 3. Why? Because that is service in relation to immovable property. But when it comes to this part between advertising company and this vendor, this is not service in relation to immovable property. This is not service in relation to immovable property. Why? Because here the service getting provided is this person is providing the service of display of advertisements. This person is providing the services of display of advertisements, not renting out immovable property, not the services in relation to immovable property. Between these two people, whatever service is happening, that is service in relation to immovable property. But between advertising agency and this person, Mr. X, whatever service that is happening, that is not in relation to immovable property. That is a service of display of advertisement. So this will not get covered under 12 subsection 3. And it will not get covered at 12 subsection 3 clause A, and it will not get covered under any of the specific services also. So like if you see here, in case of services, first we will look whether there is any specific category, like 12 subsection 3, which is talking about immovable property, 12 subsection 4 catering, 12 subsection 5 training and performance appraisal. See, if the service is not falling under any of this category, then we'll come to the residual clause. Which is what? 12 subsection 2. So here display of advertisement services is not covered under any specific category. So the service which is taking place between the advertising company and this person and this vendor Mr. X, which is display of advertisement, that will not get covered under 12 subsection 3, not under any of the specific category. Since it is not getting covered under any of the specific category, that will go to the residuary clause, which is 12 subsection 2. Able to understand? So what does 12 subsection 2 say, which is actually a residuary clause? So 12 subsection 2 says, if the recipient is registered, the place of supply will be location of recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, if the address of that recipient is available, the place of supply will be the address of that recipient. If address is not available, then the location of supplier will be the place of supply. So it will be covered by 12 subsection 2. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Guys, don't mistake it. Sir, if it is advertisement services, then we have a dedicated clause talking about advertisement. No. We have a dedicated clause talking about advertisement, agreed, but that clause is only talking about advertisement services when provided to the government. So when the advertisement services are not provided to the government, then it will not be covered by 12 subsection 14. It will go to the residuary clause at 12 subsection 2, which says if the recipient is registered, the place of supply will be location of that recipient. In case if the recipient is unregistered, if address of the recipient is available, then the location of the recipient. If address is not available, then the location of the supplier. Understood? So that is what the summary here. So if you read that content here, so once again, if I start reading the issue and the clarification, there may be another case where advertising company wants to display its advertisement on hoardings or billboards at a specific location, availing services of vendor. Not directly, they want to take the service of the vendor. The responsibility of arranging the hoardings, billboards lies with the vendor, who may himself own such structure or may be taking it on rent or rights to use basis from another person. The vendor is responsible for display of the advertisements of the advertising company at the said location. During this entire time of display of the advertisement, the vendor is in the possession of the hoarding or structure at the said location on which advertisement is displayed, and the advertising company is not occupying the space or structure. Here advertising company don't want to get the headache, so they appointed a vendor. He will go and speak with that billboard owners or hoarding owners. He will take that space on rent for a certain period of time and he will display the advertisement. In this case, what will be the place of supply of such services provided by the vendor to the advertising company? So in this case, as a service is being provided by the vendor to the advertising company, and there is no supply of space or supply of rights to use the space on hoarding or structure by the vendor to the advertising company for display of their advertisements on the said display or structure, that the said service does not amount to sale of advertising space or supply by way of grant of rights to use immovable property. That means this is not the service in relation to immovable property. Accordingly, the place of supply of the same shall not be covered under 12 subsection 3 of the IGST Act. So vendor is in fact providing advertisement services by providing visibility to an advertising company's advertisement for a specific period of time on his structure possessed or taken on rent by him at the specified location. Therefore, such services provided by the vendor to the advertising company are purely in the nature of advertisement services, in respect of which the place of supply shall be determined in terms of 12 subsection 2, which is a residuary clause. Understood? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So these are the amendments relating to place of supply. Hope you guys have understood with the help of the examples whatever I have given. Clear? So we are done with the place of supply as well. So exemptions also we are done, time of supply also we are done. So now we have a few amendments regarding registration chapter and also A small amendment regarding tax invoices, payment of taxes also we have certain amendment and returns. Okay, 4 more chapters we have. So we'll not take much of a time. We'll try to cover these amendments also. Okay, so we will begin now with registration chapter. We'll now begin the amendments relating to registration chapter. So coming to the registration chapter amendments are actually very simple ones. So first we will talk about this particular thing, amendment to Rule 25, which is relating to registration and all. So what exactly is this? See, if you remember, if you undergo at the time of submitting an application for registration, you have to undergo Aadhaar authentication. So in case if you don't go for Aadhaar authentication, if you don't opt for Aadhaar authentication, or if you have opted for Aadhaar authentication but you did not do it, then what the proper officer can do is he will grant you registration only after physical verification of your business. He will come to your place of business. He will verify the he will verify that premises physically. Then, in the presence of the in the presence of the applicant. That means, so what initially used to happen is, if you opt for Aadhaar authentication and if you have successfully done the Aadhaar authentication, the proper officer will grant you registration without any physical verification of the site. In case if you don't opt for Aadhaar authentication, you have opted but you did not do it within the reasonable amount of time, or he is finding something suspicious. He has done the Aadhaar authentication but still he is finding something suspicious with respect to this applicant, then what the proper officer can do is he can come to your place of business and do the physical verification. And earlier the rule used to say that the proper officer shall come and do the physical verification in the presence of the applicant. That means when the proper officer is coming for physical verification, the applicant should be there. In the presence of the applicant, physical verification should happen. But now what they have done is they have taken that requirement. Physical verification can happen even in the absence of the applicant also. So applicant need not be present physically there for doing physical verification. Even in the absence of the applicant also, physical verification can happen. That is the only amendment, nothing else here. See here, in the presence, this has been taken off. Earlier they used to say that if the proper officer wants to do the physical verification, he has to do it in the presence of the said person, in the presence of the applicant, but they have done away with that amendment. They have done away with that requirement of the physical presence of the applicant. Even if the applicant is not there, still the proper officer can go and do the physical verification. The same thing they say, if we read it here, so amended proviso to Rule 9 sub Rule 1, where a person fails to undergo Aadhaar authentication, or he does not opt for Aadhaar authentication, or a person who has undergone Aadhaar authentication but is identified on the common portal based on data analysis and risk parameters for carrying out physical verification of place of business. So number one, either you did not do Aadhaar authentication, or you did not opt for Aadhaar authentication, or you have done the Aadhaar authentication but the system is on the basis of the risk parameters, system is showing your case is somewhat suspicious, or even after granting registration also, the proper officer may deem it fit to carry out physical verification of place of business, and the registration shall be granted within 30 days of submission of the application after physical verification of the place of business. And earlier they used to say that physical verification should happen in the presence of said person, but they have removed it now. Even in the absence of the applicant also, physical verification can happen in the manner as provided under Rule 25, and verification of such documents as the proper officer may deem fit. And corresponding amendments has also been done in Rule 25, where the proper officer is satisfied that physical verification of a place of business is required after grant of registration. Sometimes you will be granted registration after certain point of time. After the proper officer has granted you the registration, after certain point of time, the proper officer may feel that physical verification of the premises will be required. In case if the proper officer is doing physical verification after granting of the registration, then he may get such verification of the place of business done, and the verification report along with other documents including photographs shall be uploaded in the prescribed form on the common portal within a period of 15 working days following the date of such verification. So in case if the proper officer is doing physical verification after the grant of registration, and if he has done the physical verification within how many days? Within 15 days of completing that physical verification, all the relevant documents, that photographs of the physical verification, everything should be uploaded. By whom? Not applicant, by the proper officer. So within 15 days of verification, the proper officer should upload all the documents and photographs relating to physical verification, in case if the physical verification is happening after the grant of registration. However, if the physical verification is happening before the grant of registration because of failure of other authentication and all, before granting the registration only, if the proper officer is conducting the physical verification, in those cases, the proper officer shall get such verification of the place of business done, and the verification report along with other documents including photographs shall be uploaded in the prescribed form on the common portal at least 5 working days prior to the completion of the time period. Nothing but in case if you are applied for registration and if the proper officer wants to do physical verification, he can grant the registration within 30 days. He can do the physical verification and grant the registration within 30 days of the application. And that report regarding physical verification should be submitted at least prior to 5 working days prior to the completion of the time period. So proper officer will have the time limit to grant the to take proper action within 30 days of the application. And in case if the physical verification has been done at least 5 working days prior to that completion of the time limit is 30 days. At least 5 working days prior to that completion of the time limit, the proper officer should upload the photographs and other relevant documents on the common portal regarding the physical verification. Understood? So if the proper officer is doing physical verification after the grant of registration, all the documents are required to be submitted within 15 working days of such verification. In case if the physical verification is happening prior to the grant of registration, in those circumstances, the proper officer should upload all the documents at least 5 working days prior to the completion of the specified time limit. What is the time limit? The specified time limit is 30 days of application. Okay, see, this is what exactly they are referring to. If I show you specifically what they are trying to say here. So if I take you to the registration chapter, yeah, here. Yes, see here. See, in case physical verification is required, the proper officer should grant the registration within 30 days. No, within 30 days of application, he has to grant the registration. So in case if he is doing physical verification here, in this case, within this 30 days, you have to take appropriate action. At least 5 working days prior to this completion of 30 days, the proper officer should upload all the documents and photos, whatever he has done regarding physical verification. Understood? So this is what actually they are trying to refer here. Clear? Next one. There is also one more amendment. Rule 10A is also amended. Sir, what does Rule 10A talk about? Furnishing of the bank account details. So if you remember the provisions of the registration chapter, see, when you are making an application for registration of GST, you need not declare the bank account details in the application itself. Even after you have been granted the registration within certain time limit, you can submit that you can furnish the bank account details. The time of submitting the application for registration, you need not give your bank account details. Even after grant of the registration within a certain amount of time, you are permitted to upload that bank account details. Earlier, the time limit used to be 45 days from the date of grant of registration or the due date of furnishing written under 39. For the first time, whenever you furnish GSTR 3B, so either 45 days from the date of grant of registration or the due date for furnishing of GSTR 3B, whichever is earlier, within that time, you are supposed to upload the bank account details. This was older provision. Earlier, they used to give this much amount of time limit within 45 days from the grant of registration or the due date for furnishing of GSTR 3B, whichever is earlier. Within that date, you have to furnish bank account details under old rule. But now this time limit has been amended. Amended Rule 10A provides that the registered person except TDS or TCS collector, after obtaining certificate of registration and GSTIN, is allowed to furnish information with respect to details of the bank account on the common portal within a period of 30 days from the date of grant of registration or before furnishing the details of outward supplies of goods or services or both under section 37 in form GSTR 1 or using IFF. So earlier they told you have to declare the bank account details either within 45 days or due date for filing of GSTR 3B, whichever is earlier. But now the updated time limit says within 30 days of grant of registration or before the furnishing of the due dates of GSTR 1 or IFF, invoice furnishing facility, in case if you are a quarterly return filer. So either within 30 days from the grant of registration certificate or the due date for furnishing of GSTR 1 or IFF, whichever is earlier, within that date you have to furnish bank account details. Sir, what will happen if I don't furnish the bank account details within this time limit? That we will see to the next provision. But let me tell you well in advance, in case if you don't furnish the bank account details within this time limit, now they have told that your registration will be suspended automatically by the system. System itself will automatically suspend your account. So that they have told in Rule 21 sub rule 2A. They have inserted a new rule. So actually, Rule 21A talks about when the system can suspend your registration. In that, they have done one amendment. So earlier the section used to have, or earlier the rule used to have only this provision. Earlier, the rule used to have this provision only. When the system can suspend your registration, system automatically can suspend your registration. When a comparison of returns filed by the registered person under section 39, that means the return whatever the registered person has filed, GSTR 3B, on comparing your GSTR 3B with a GSTR 1, or the details of inward supplies derived on the details of outward supplies furnished by their suppliers in their form GSTR 1. Nothing but simply they are referring to GSTR 2B. GSTR 2B. So the system will do a comparison of your GSTR 3B along with your GSTR 1 and GSTR 2B. And if it finds any major mismatch, like for example, in the GSTR 1, you have declared the outward supplies as 10 lakh rupees. But in GSTR 3B, you are telling your outward supplies are only 8 lakhs and reducing your output tax liability. Or you are claiming more input tax credit than it is available for you. So system will do the comparison of your GSTR 3B along with the GSTR 1 and GSTR 2B. Or the system can carry out any other analysis as may be recommended by the council. And by doing that analysis, if that analysis shows that there are significant differences or anomalies, there are significant deviations indicating contravention of the provisions of the CGST Act or the rules made thereunder, leading to cancellation of registration of the said person. So this provision is already there. This is not amended. This is already there. We have discussed this in the regular class as well. So what Rule 21A says is, system sometimes can automatically suspend the registration. When the system has done some analysis, it will carry out some analysis on the basis of returns whatever you have filed. And out of that returns, if the system finds some deviations or anomalies, which is giving a hint that there could be a violation of the provisions, which might require the proper officer to cancel the registration. If those circumstances are identified on that analysis, system will automatically suspend the registration. Now, to this rule, they have added one more clause. Now they are telling that if there is a contravention of the provisions of Rule 10A, Rule 10A just now we have read, you have to furnish the bank account details within certain time limit. In case if you don't furnish the bank account within the given time limit, then also system will automatically suspend your registration. Your registration will be suspended. Clear? Now, once your registration gets suspended, the said person shall be intimated in a prescribed form by sending a communication to his email address provided at the time of registration or is amended from time to time. That means if your registration is suspended, immediately you will get a mail. In this intimation for suspension and notice for cancellation of registration, the said differences and anomalies are highlighted and the said person is asked to explain within a period of 30 days as to why his registration shall not be cancelled. So if the system has carried out these analysis and if you did not furnish the bank account details within the specified time limit, your registration will be held on suspension. You will get a notice to your email address. Within 30 days of receiving that notice, you have to respond back. If you don't respond within that 30 days, your registration will be cancelled. Within the 30 days of time, your registration will be under suspension. If you don't respond within that time limit, your registration will be liable for cancellation. And they have also added one more proviso in which they told that in case if your registration has been suspended because you did not furnish the bank account details and your registration has not yet been cancelled by the proper officer, within that time limit, if you voluntarily go and update your bank account details, your suspension will be revoked. That means your suspension will be lifted. You can continue. Your registration will come into force. Able to understand? In case, because of this reason, if there is a contravention of the provisions of Rule 10A, if your registration has been suspended because you did not furnish your bank account details and your registration is not yet cancelled by the proper officer, if you voluntarily go within that time and upload the bank account details, your suspension will be lifted. Your suspension will be lifted. That means your registration once again will become active. So that another provision they have added, where the registration has been suspended as above for contravention of the provisions of Rule 10A, where you did not furnish the bank account details and the registration has not already been cancelled by the proper officer. See, if the registration is already cancelled, then nothing you can do. But your registration is just suspended. But before cancellation by the proper officer, if you have submitted the bank account details, the suspension of registration shall be deemed to be revoked upon compliance with the provisions of Rule 10A. That means your suspension will be lifted, your registration will be effective, provided you should submit the bank account details before your registration has been cancelled. Once your registration is cancelled by the proper officer, nothing you can do. But if the registration is not yet cancelled, you furnish the bank account details, they will lift the suspension and your registration will become active. Clear? Next one. See, there is one more amendment in rule number 23, which is regarding time limit for application for revocation of cancellation of registration increased to 90 days and extension of 180 days permitted on sufficient reason being shown. That means in case if the proper officer has cancelled your registration. But if you are if you want your registration back, there is one provision given under GST Act. You can submit an application asking for revocation of cancellation. Sir, please give me back my registration. You have cancelled my registration. Please cancel that cancellation. That means once again, please make my registration active. You can submit an application for revocation of cancellation of registration. But there is a time limit. Within certain time limit, you have to submit that application for cancellation of registration. Earlier, the time limit used to be very less. Now they have increased that time limit for making an application for cancellation of revocation. Sorry, application for revocation of cancellation. So first I will tell you what is the earlier rule. Earlier rule is a registered person whose registration is cancelled by the proper officer on his own motion may, subject to the provisions of Rule 10B, that is Aadhaar authentication, submit an application for revocation of cancel of registration to such proper officer within a period of 30 days. Earlier, the time limit was within 30 days of cancellation, you have to submit an application. From the date of service of the order of cancel of registration or within such time as extended by the additional commissioner or joint commissioner or the commissioner as the case may be. So earlier, the time limit is within 30 days, you have to submit the application for revocation. But if there is a valid reason, additional commissioner or joint commissioner or the commissioner, they can extend the time limit as they deem fit. They did not mention exact time limit, but whatever time they feel appropriate, they can extend the time limit. Now this overall time limit has been extended. Now the amended provision says a registered person whose registration is cancelled by the proper officer on his own motion may, subject to the provisions of Rule 10B, submit an application for revocation of cancellation of registration in prescribed form to such proper officer within a period of 90 days from the date of service of order of cancellation of registration. So earlier it was 30 days. Now they are telling what? 90 days. Within 90 days, the day on which the service of the order of cancellation was served to you. That means the date on which you have received the mail that your registration has been cancelled. From that day, within 90 days, you can submit an application for revocation of cancellation. And this 90 days time limit can be even extended. However, such period may, on sufficient cause being shown and for reasons to be recorded in writing, be extended by the commissioner or an officer authorized by him in this behalf, not below the rank of additional commissioner or joint commissioner, as the case may be, for a further period not exceeding 180 days. So initially on your own, you can make the application within 90 days. But if you show valid reason, the commissioner can even extend that time limit for making application for revocation of cancellation by further 180 days. That means total within 270 days, 90 days on your own. If you forgot it, if you have valid reason to show it to the commissioner, you can make an appeal and the commissioner can extend the time limit by further 180 days. Clear? So earlier it was 30, now they have increased it to 90 plus 180. Understood? This is the amended rule regarding provision. Now talking about Rule 8 Sub Rule 1. Nothing but, see, there are certain kind of people who can obtain the registration without submitting a PAN. For example, OIDR, Online Information Data Access and Retrieval Service Provider. Sometimes people will be, or NRTP, you take NRTP also. So NRTP will not have a PAN as per our country, but this person is required to obtain registration. Government can't compel these persons to furnish PAN, no, because they will not have PAN. So there are certain category of persons who are not required to submit PAN for the purpose of obtaining registration. Generally, PAN is mandatory, but certain people are exempted for submitting PAN. One such example is NRTP, or Online Information Data Access and Retrieval Service Provider. To that list, one more person they have added. So which is Rule 8 Sub Rule 1 has been amended to exclude a person supplying online money gaming from a place outside India to a person in India from declaring their PAN and state or union territory for applying registration. So if there is some online money gaming service provider who is providing that services from outside of India, and that services are provided to a person who is in India. Now online money gaming service provider, he has to obtain registration, but since he is outside India, he will not have PAN. So now that person without PAN also, he can obtain the registration. So in addition to that NRTP OIDR, even this person has also been added to the list. The person whoever is supplying online money gaming services from a place outside India to a person in India, he has to get registered under GST. But for getting that registration, since he's operating from a place outside India, he will not have PAN as per Indian laws. Even without that PAN number also, the GST department will grant the registration. Clear? So this is what the amendment which they have done in Rule 8 Sub Rule 1. Yes, these are the amendments relating to registration chapter. Hope you guys have understood it. So let us now try to proceed further with remaining chapters as well. So now we will talk about amendments relating to tax invoice, credit and debit notes chapter. So let us see what is that. So in this, one major amendment is the threshold limit for e-invoicing was reduced to 10 crores. When we discuss the regular classes, we have seen that when the aggregate turnover has exceeded 10 crores in any of the financial years starting from 2017-18, then for all the B2B invoices, e-invoice should be given. So earlier the limit was 10 crore rupees for issuing for issuing e-invoice. Now they have reduced that turnover limit to 5 crores only. So let us see what they are trying to say here. With effect from 1/8/2023, with effect from 1st of August 2023, the threshold limit for issuing e-invoice has been reduced to 5 crores. Earlier it used to be 10 crores. Now they are telling if your turnover is 5 crore, then also you become liable for giving e-invoice for B2B transactions. Thus, e-invoicing has been made mandatory for all registered businesses with an aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 2017-18 onwards greater than 5 crore. Not in all the years, guys. From the year 2017-18, in any year, in any one of the year, even in one of the years also, if aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crore rupees, then they are required to give e-invoice for all the B2B transactions. Take for example, 17-18 the turnover is 3 crore rupees, 18-19 the turnover is 4 crore rupees, 19-20 the turnover is 6 crore rupees, 2021 the turnover is 3 crore rupees. Are they required to issue e-invoice? Yes, e-invoice is required to be issued. Why? Because in any of the years starting from 2017-18, if the turnover has exceeded 5 crore rupees, then they are required to mandatorily issue B2B then they are required to issue for all the B2B transactions e-invoice mandatorily. Clear? And there is also one more clarification which has been given. There is one doubt which has come to the GST department and they have given a clarification. So first let me read and explain what exactly is this clarification. See, this clarification is regarding the government departments or PSUs which are required to take registration as per section 51, who are required to deduct TDS. So we have in the TDS and TCS chapter, we have discussed section 51 related provisions. So under section 51, in case if the recipient is a government department or establishment or a government agency or a local authority or PSU, if the recipient falls under any of this category, then before they make the payment of consideration to the supplier, they are required to deduct something called TDS. This we have already discussed in our regular classes. So when the recipient falls under government departments or government establishments or government agencies, local authorities or PSUs, if they are receiving goods or services from suppliers, then before they make the payment, they have to pay, for example, total 1 lakh rupees of consideration they have to pay. They will not pay the full amount. What they will do is they will deduct TDS. They will deduct TDS at the rate of 1% CGST, 1% SGST. If it is IGST, directly 2% IGST. This TDS they have to deduct. And they have told that the person who is required to deduct TDS, these people who are required to deduct TDS, they are required to obtain compulsory registration. They are required to obtain compulsory registration. Now the doubt which has come here is, assume that there is one supplier whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores in any of the financial year from 2017-18. And if he is making any of the B2B sales, he is required to issue e-invoice. Now assume that supplier who has exceeded the turnover of 5 crore rupees, he is making a supply to any of this entity who are required to deduct TDS. And these entities are exclusively registered only for the deduction of TDS. These entities are registered exclusively only for the purpose of deduction of TDS. So now these people are also registered and the supplier is supplying the goods or services to them. Sir, this is also should these people be also treated as registered person? Should it also be treated as B2B supply? In this case also, will e-invoice requirement will be there? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So the overall confusion here is whether in case if the supply is made to these kind of entities who are registered exclusively for the purpose of deduction of TDS, will they also be treated as registered persons? The transaction with them will also be treated as B2B transactions? If yes, will e-invoice be required? Yes. For all the questions, the answer is yes. Yes, even if you are making supply to any of these entities who are required to deduct TDS and who registered themselves only for the purpose of deduction of TDS, still they will be treated as registered persons. Transactions with them will be treated as B2B transactions, and for them e-invoice is required to be given. So that is what the summary here. So if we start reading it, the issue which arose for consideration was whether e-invoicing is applicable for supplies made by a registered person whose turnover exceeds the prescribed threshold limit, which is 5 crores currently, for generation of e-invoice to government departments or establishments, government agencies, local authorities or PSUs which are registered solely for the purpose of deduction of TDS as per section 51. So these entities which have obtained registration only for the purpose of deduction of TDS, and with them certain person is doing transaction whose turnover has exceeded the applicable threshold limit for issuing e-invoice. In that case also is a e-invoicing required. That is what the issue. And the government clarified that it is clarified that government departments or establishments, government agencies or local authorities or PSUs which are required to deduct TDS under section 51 are liable for compulsory registration. They are required to obtain compulsory registration. Therefore, government departments or establishments or government agencies, local authorities, PSUs registered solely for the purpose of deduction of TDS as per the provisions of section 51 are to be treated as registered persons under the GST law as per the provisions of section 94, section 2 subsection 94. Accordingly, the registered person whose turnover exceeds the prescribed threshold limit for generation of e-invoicing is required to issue e-invoice for the supplies made to government departments or establishments or government agencies or local authorities or PSUs. That means even for them also e-invoice will be required. Clear? Now, what else we are left with? Payment of taxes we are left with. So this is one interesting amendment, not that important from the examination perspective. So, but let me try to explain it. So what exactly is this? See, not that important from the examination perspective, guys, but still I will try to explain it. I'll try to understand what exactly is all this amendment about. So this is relating to classification on charging of interest under section 50 subsection 3 in case of wrong availment of IGST and reversal thereof. So what is this amendment? For this, we need to go back to the basics, whatever we have discussed in payment of taxes. See, in the payment of taxes, there is one provision. In case if you have wrongly availed, and utilized input tax credit, you have wrongly availed and utilized input tax credit, and later if you are reversing it, if you are reversing that wrongly availed and utilized input tax credit, you have to reverse it along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum. You have to return it along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum in respect of that credit which has been wrongly availed and utilized. This term is very, very important. If you have wrongly availed and utilized the credit, and if you are reversing that, you have to reverse that credit when you have to reverse that credit along with the interest at the rate of 18% per annum. So let me give you a typical scenario. Take for example, you have IGST credit. Take for example, you have a credit of 1 lakh rupees. You have wrongly availed. 20,000 rupees. This you are not eligible for, but you have wrongly availed. Totally, you have availed 1,20,000 rupees of credit. Your output tax liability is 90,000. You have used your input tax credit of 90,000 and made adjusted against this output tax liability. So still you have input tax credit of 30,000 rupees. Out of 1,20,000, 90,000 you have utilized. So still you have input tax rate of 30,000 rupees. Now later you realize that, okay, this 20,000 I have availed it by mistake. Let me reverse it. Now if you are reversing that 20,000 rupees of credit, are you required to reverse it along with interest? The answer is no. You are not required to reverse it along with interest. Why? Because you have only availed, you did not utilize it. You have only availed, you did not utilize it. See, actual utilization will happen when the closing balance is less than the wrongly availed credit. So when the closing balance of the input tax credit has fallen less than the wrongly availed amount, then only we will treat it as utilized. Here you have availed it, but you have not yet utilized it. So in case if you have realized this mistake and if you want to reverse that wrongly availed credit, you can reverse it. No need to apply the interest. No need to reverse the along with interest. Let me give you another scenario. Take for example, credit is that GST credit is there. 1 lakh is the credit you have availed correctly. Wrongly availed credit is 10,000 rupees. Wrongly availed credit is 10,000 rupees. Totally 1,10,000 rupees is the credit you have availed. Out of that, 10,000 is wrongly availed. Take for example, you have an output tax liability of 1,05,000. You have an output tax liability of 1,05,000 and you have used your 1,05,000 rupees of credit and adjusted your output tax liability. Now you have a closing balance of input tax credit of 5,000 rupees. Later you realize that, oh my god, I have availed this 10,000 rupees of credit wrongly. Now you will reverse it. Now reversing that 10,000 alone will not be enough. Why? Because your closing balance has fallen below that wrongly availed amount. So 5,000 out of this total 10,000 of wrongly availed credit, 5,000 you have availed and utilized. 5,000 you have availed but not yet utilized. Now, when you are reversing that 5,000, you have to reverse that 5,000 along with 18% interest per annum. But when you are reversing the balance 5,000, since you did not utilize it, since it is still there, you have availed but not yet utilized it. So this you need to reverse it only 5,000. No need to reverse it along with interest. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So when you have wrongly availed and also utilized input tax credit, and when you are reversing it in the future, you have to reverse it along with interest. Sir, when we will treat ITC has been wrongly availed and also utilized, we will treat it as wrongly availed and also utilized when the closing balance of that ITC falls below the wrongly availed amount. Then only we'll consider it as wrongly availed and also utilized. Now, the clarification which they have given here is, take for example, IGST is there. We have certain credits. Let me give you the amendment, whatever I'm trying to say here. IGST we have, CGST we have, SGST we have. See, input tax credit, I have 1 lakh, IGST I have 1 lakh rupees. CGST I have some 20,000. SGST also I have 20,000. I have wrongly availed. IGST of 20,000 rupees. Wrongly availed IGST of 20,000. Total credit I have is 1,20,000. 20,000 CGST, 20,000 SGST. Take for example, my total output tax liability is 1,20,000. Total output tax liability is 1,20,000. I have used an input tax credit of IGST. I have used an input tax credit of IGST of 1,20,000 and paid it. I don't have any output tax liability. Now later I realized that I have wrongly availed the credit. I want to reverse it. So now when you reverse 20,000 rupees, should you reverse it along with interest? When you reverse that 20,000 rupees later, when you later realize, oh, I have wrongly availed 20,000 rupees of credit, let me reverse it. Should you reverse that 20,000 along with interest? The answer is no. Sir, why sir? You have availed? No. 1,20,000 completely utilized? No. But here that new amendment says that while considering whether you have utilized IGST or not, don't just consider only closing balance of IGST. Consider closing balance of IGST, CGST and SGST. And if the cumulative balance falls below the wrongly availed amount, then only reverse it. Then only it will be considered as wrongly availed and utilized. Then only you have to reverse it along with interest. So here I have to not just see the closing balance of IGST has fallen below the wrongly availed amount. I have to see the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST, SGST all put together. Here the total cumulative balance is here completely I have used. So total cumulative balance is 40,000, which is far higher than wrongly availed amount of 20,000. Here if you reverse 20,000, that alone will be enough. No need to reverse that 18% interest. No need to reverse that 18% interest. Able to understand? So this is what they have told. In case of IGST, we will determine whether it has been wrongly availed and utilized or not by considering the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST and SGST. All the cumulative balances we will consider, and cumulatively we will see whether it has fallen below that wrongly availed amount. If it is there, then only we will reverse it along with interest. If it is not, then we will not reverse it along with interest. So that is what the clarification they have given simply. So we have to see the cumulative balance of not just IGST, the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST and SGST. This is only for IGST. This is only for calculating whether IGST has been wrongly availed and utilized. We have to see the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST and SGST. Clear? So the same thing they have tried to clarify here. So let us have a quick look at it. So the issue which arose for consideration as to whether in case of wrong availment of IGST credit by a registered person and reversal thereof for the calculation of interest under Rule 88B, nothing but that interest at the rate of 18% per annum. whether the balance of ITC available in electronic credit ledger under the head IGST only needs to be considered, or total ITC available in electronic credit ledger under the heads of IGST, CGST and SGST all together has to be considered. So as I have told you in the example, you have to see the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST and SGST, whether cumulatively the balance has fallen below that wrongly availed credit, then only we will treat it as wrongly availed and utilized, then only interest will apply. Clear? So let me give you one more example. So one more example I will give you to make you understand. Take for example, IGST is there, CGST. Guys, I'm doing all this example for the sake of your convenience to make you comfortable with the topic. So assume that the availed credit is 1,20,000, 20,000. Okay. So I have wrongly availed IGST for 20,000. I have wrongly availed IGST for 20,000. I have a output tax liability of, so total how much credit I have? 1,20,000 IGST. I have a credit for 20,000 CGST. I have a credit for 20,000 SGST. Okay. Total I have 1,60,000 rupees of total credit available. I have a output tax liability of 1,50,000. I have a total output tax liability of 1,50,000. So to make this payment, first I have used IGST, 1,20,000 I have used. Then I have used CGST, for which I have used 20,000. Then I have used SGST, for which I have used 10,000. By this I have set off my output tax liability. Now how much closing balance I have? So here I have completely used 1,20,000 over, here also 20,000 over, here also 10,000 over. So I have only SGST component of 10,000 closing balance I have. Later I have realized, oh, I have wrongly availed this IGST amount, let me reverse it. So you are reversing that 20,000. Now, are you required to reverse along with interest? Yes. Why? Because closing balance have fallen below 10,000 rupees. So you have IGST wrong, cumulative balance you have to see. Once again, cumulative balance of CGST, IGST and SGST, total cumulative balance is 10,000. It has fallen below wrongly availed amount. So out of this total 20,000 which you have wrongly availed, now if you want to reverse it, for that 10,000 you have to reverse it along with 18% interest. Why? Because 10,000 you have wrongly availed. Out of 20,000, 10,000 you have wrongly availed and utilized, that you have to reverse along with the interest at the rate of 18%. The balance 10,000 whatever is there, that is still there in your closing balance, that you have only availed, not utilized. This if you just reverse, that will be enough. No need to reverse along with interest. Clear? So this is what the clarity they have given. This is applicable only for IGST. So since the amount of ITC available in electronic cash ledger under any of the heads, IGST, CGST, SGST, can be utilized for payment of IGST. If you want to make payment of IGST, you can use any of this credit. So it is a total ITC available in electronic credit ledger under the heads of IGST, CGST and SGST taken together that has to be considered for calculation of interest under Rule 88B. And determining as to whether the balance in ACL has fallen below the amount of wrongly availed ITC, wrongly availed ITC of IGST, and to what extent the balance in ECL has fallen below the said amount of wrongly availed credit. Nothing but the summary is you have to take the cumulative balance of IGST, CGST and SGST all put together. You have to collectively consider and then check whether it has been fallen below or not. Now coming to the second point, thus in the cases where GST has been wrongly availed and subsequently reversed on a certain date, there will not be any interest liability under 50 subsection 3 if during the time period starting from such availment up to such reversal, the balance of ITC in the electronic credit ledger under the cumulative heads of IGST, CGST and SGST taken together has never fallen below the amount of such wrongly availed ITC, even if available balance in IGST has fallen individually below the amount of such wrongly availed amount. The same thing I have tried to explain in the form of example. However, when the balance of ITC under the heads of IGST, CGST and SGST all taken together falls below such wrongly availed amount of IGST credit, then it will amount to utilization of such wrongly availed IGST credit. And the extent of utilization will be the extent to which the total balance in ECL under the heads taken together falls with nothing but I have done all that calculations and all that, only they are trying to explain it in the form of this graphical format. Take the help of these examples, try to draft these kind of examples and read it along with the content here. You will be able to automatically understand. And one more thing is, sir, in considering that closing balance, should I consider the credit which is there in electronic GST compensation cess also? No, you should not consider credit in the GST compensation cess. Why? Because GST compensation cess can be utilized only for the payment of GST compensation cess only. So some fellow got the doubt, sir, I will consider the closing balance in IGST, CGST and SGST. Should I consider the closing balance in the GST compensation cess account also? No, don't consider the closing balance in the composition cess account. Only consider the closing balance in IGST, CGST and SGST only. So that is what here they say. Since ITC in respect of compensation cess can be utilized only towards payment of the compensation cess, thus credit of compensation cess cannot be utilized for the payment of any tax under CGST, SGST or IGST heads and or reversal of credit under the said heads. Accordingly, the credit of compensation cess available in the electronic credit ledger cannot be taken into account while considering the balance of electronic credit ledger for the purpose of calculation of interest. So nothing but one highly smart fellow got it out. So I'm considering cumulative balance of CGST, IGST and SGST. No, I will consider even the balance in the electronic, even I will consider the balance in GST compensation cess also. The act told don't be over smart. Don't consider compensation cess regarding ITC. That is used only for ITC. That is only used as adjustment for output compensation cess payable. Don't add it for the purpose of calculation of interest. So this is what is summary. I know this is a bit advanced kind of provision, but I think with the help of examples, I have made my point clear. So what else is there? Right. So in the returns, a small amendment is there. Let us try to understand that amendments. First of all, I will explain this rule 88D. See, one new rule 88D has been amended. Sir, what is that new rule 88D, sir? So new rule 88D says that if you remember the returns, first what will happen, guys? First, I will file GSTR1. In that, I will declare all my outward supplies. Then I will file GSTR3B. In the GSTR3B, I will determine my output tax liability. Then I should take input tax credit, which is reflected in my GSTR2B. There will be GSTR2B. So whatever credit that has been reflected in my GSTR2B, that credit I will take. The balance, whatever is there, that amount I have to pay it. This is what my procedure now. Now they have introduced one rule 88D. That new rule 88D says that whatever input tax credit that you are availing in GSTR3B, if it is more than the amount which is there in your GSTR2B, in your GSTR2B, take for example, 10 lakh rupees of credit is shown. But in the input tax, in the GSTR3B, whatever you are filing, you are claiming more input tax credit. In your GSTR2B, it is only 10 lakhs. But in your GSTR3B, you are claiming 12 lakh rupees. Since it has exceeded the amount which is shown in the GSTR2B, the government will send you a notice. The common portal will send you a notice automatically. To that you have to reply within a certain period of time, or you have to deposit the amount whatever you have claimed excess along with interest. If not, the department can cancel your registration. So that new rule they have introduced. So let us read it, very simple one only, where the amount of ITC availed by a registered person in the return for a tax period furnished by him in form GSTR3B exceeds the ITC available to such person in accordance with the auto-generated statement containing the details of ITC in form GSTR2B. That means in your GSTR2B, ITC will be reflected. In the GSTR3B, generally you should take the credit whatever is reflected in the GSTR2B. But in case if you are taking credit more than the amount reflected in GSTR2B in respect of the said tax period by specified amount and percentage, if you are claiming the ITC beyond certain amount and percentage, then the said registered person shall be given an intimation in the prescribed form electronically on the common portal, and a copy of such intimation shall also be sent to his email address provided at the time of registration or as amended from time to time. That means in case if you have claimed more input tax credit in your GSTR3B than reflected in your GSTR2B, you will get one intimation to your email, and said intimation shall highlight the said difference and will direct him. In that intimation they will mention either pay an amount equal to the excess ITC availed in said form GSTR3B along with interest. So in that intimation, what they will say you is, boss, in your GSTR2B, in your GSTR2B, credit reflected is 10 lakh rupees. But you have claimed in your GSTR3B 12 lakh rupees. Pay that extra amount, whatever excess amount you have claimed, pay that extra 2 lakh rupees along with interest. Or explain the reasons for the aforesaid difference in ITC on the common portal. Two options they will give. First they will send the intimation. In that intimation they will give you two options. Number one, either you pay that excess amount or explain the reasons why you have claimed that excess amount. Within how much time, sir? Within 7 days you have to give that reply. Either you have to pay or you have to give the reply. Within how many days? Within 7 days. Such registered person shall, upon receipt of intimation, either pay an amount equal to the excess ITC as specified in the intimation fully or partially along with interest payable. So within the 7 days, what you should do, either pay that amount or at least furnish a reply. If you also know that you have committed a mistake, pay that amount within that 7 days. Or at least what you should do, if you have a valid reason, furnish a reply within that 7 days. Where any amount specified in the intimation remains to be paid within 7 days period, and no explanation is furnished by the registered person in default, where the explanation or reason furnished by him is not found to be acceptable by the proper officer, the said amount shall be liable to be demanded. That means within 7 days you did not reply. Within 7 days you did not reply. Within 7 days you have given the reply, but that reply is not satisfactory. Then the department will have power to raise the amount, whatever demand that has been mentioned in the notice, whatever amount they have mentioned in the intimation, the department will have a right to collect that amount. They will send the notice, they might attach your properties, all that things will happen, which are actually mentioned in section 73, 74, which is not a part of our CA inter syllabus. That we will discuss it as a part of our CA final syllabus. Understood? Clear and comfortable? So very simple, guys. New rule has been introduced. If you have taken excess amount of credit in your GSTR 3B than whatever has been reflected in your GSTR 2B. First, they will give you intimation. In that intimation, they will give you two options: either pay the amount or give the reply. Within how many days? Within 7 days. So within that 7 days, as a person, as a registered person, either you give a reply or pay the amount. In case within 7 days you are not paying the amount, you are not giving the reply, or you have given some bullshit reply which the department is not satisfied with, then the department will have all the power to collect the amount from you as per section 73, 74. That is attachment of the properties and all they can do, which will be discussed as a part of CA final. Now, so then, and there is one more amendment here, nothing but additional cases prescribed where a registered person is debarred from furnishing details of outward supplies. See, sometimes the system will not permit you to furnish GSTR 1 or IFF. If you are a quarterly return filer, IFF. If you are a monthly return filer, GSTR 1. System will not permit. System will not allow you to file the current period's GSTR 1 or invoice furnishing facility. When, sir? So there are so many circumstances. All that circumstances are already there. 4 circumstances are already there, which we have read in our material. Now 2 new circumstances are added where a person will be debarred from filing the GSTR 1, where the system will not permit you to file the GSTR 1 or IFF. So first let us try to understand what are existing rules. The existing rules is, if a registered person shall not be allowed to furnish the details of outward supplies of goods or services or both under section 37 in form GSTR 1, if he has not furnished the return in form GSTR 3B for the preceding month. Last month GSTR 3B, if you did not file, in the current month, you will not be permitted to file the GSTR 1. Next. Similarly, if he has not furnished GSTR return in form 3B for the preceding tax period, if you are a quarterly return filer, if you are a monthly return filer, if you are required to furnish the returns every month, if you are a monthly return filer, and if you did not file the previous month's GSTR 3B, you will not be allowed to file GSTR 1 for the current month. If you are a quarterly return filer, if you did not file the GSTR 3B for the previous quarter, in the current quarter, you will not be able to furnish IFF or GSTR 1. Simple. If you are a monthly return filer, if you did not file the last month's GSTR 3B. If you are a quarterly return filer, if you did not file the last quarter's GSTR 3B, then you will not be allowed to furnish GSTR 1 or IFF. System will restrict you. Similarly, a person to whom an intimation has been issued on the common portal under subrule 188C. Nothing but this 88C is, in case in the GSTR 1, you are showing some outward liability, outward supplies. For example, in the GSTR 1, you have shown 10 lakh rupees of outward supplies. Because if you file GSTR 1, then only your recipient will get the credit. But in the GSTR 3B, what you have done is, you have reduced your outward supplies. In the GSTR 1, you are declaring 10 lakh rupees of outward supplies and passing on the credit to the recipients. But in your GSTR 3B, you are declaring my outward supplies are only 8 lakhs and you want to pay the output tax liability only on 8 lakhs. If you do these kind of things, in GSTR 1 you are declaring higher outward supply, but in GSTR 3B to reduce your tax liability you are declaring lower outward supplies. Then the government will send you intimation, 88C, they will send you intimation under 88C. And if you have not responded to that 88C, then also you will be debarred from filing the GSTR 1. Until and unless you furnish that reply, you will not be allowed to furnish the GSTR 1. So the same thing they say, a registered person to whom an intimation has been issued on the common portal under the provisions of 88C subrule 1. Nothing but when you have lower outward supplies in GSTR 3B than when compared with GSTR 1, then an intimation will be given to you. In case if an intimation has been given to you under rule 88C, then you shall not be allowed to furnish the details of outward supplies or both under GSTR 1 or using invoice furnishing facility for the subsequent tax period, unless you have either deposited the amount specified in the intimation or you have furnished the reply. Same like 88D, which we have discussed. In the 88C also, the system will track this and they will send you notice. So in that notice, they will tell you either to pay the amount or give the reply. So in case if the notice under 88C has been given to you, either you did not pay the amount or you did not give a reply, then you will be debarred from furnishing GSTR1. In that case also, they will not allow you to furnish GSTR1. And also, so these three things are already there. Now the two things they have added. One thing is 10A. See, if you don't furnish the bank account details, rule 10A we have discussed, no, you have to furnish the bank account details within 30 days or within the due date for furnishing of GSTR1 or IFF. So in case if you failed to comply with the rule 10A, then also you will be debarred from filing GSTR1. This they have added. So the registered person shall not be allowed to furnish GSTR1 or IFF if he has not furnished the details of the bank account as per the provisions of rule 10A. In this case also you will be debarred. And one more thing also they have added, nothing but rule 88D. Just now we have understood, no, new rule has been introduced. So in case if the registered person got the intimation under rule 88D and either you are not making the payment or you are not giving the reply, then also you will be debarred from filing GSTR1. So a registered person to whom an intimation has been issued on the common portal under the provisions of rule 88D1 in respect of the tax period or periods shall not be allowed to file GSTR1 or IFF for a subsequent tax period unless he has either paid the amount equal to the excess ITC as specified in the said intimation or has furnished a reply explaining the reasons in respect of the amount of excess ITC that still remains to be paid as required under 88D sub rule 2. That means if a notice has been given to you under 88D, either you did not either pay the amount or you did not give the reply, nothing you have done, then also you will be debarred from filing the GSTR1. Automatically what will happen is in the software you will not be permitted to file the GSTR1. You will not be able to pass on the credit. Clear? So these are the circumstances where a registered person will be debarred from filing GSTR1 or IFF. So these three things are already there from a long period of time. These two are actually added. These two things are actually added. So if you have violated the provisions of rule 10A and a notice has been given to you under 88D and you fail to give a reply or pay the amount. Clear? So this is what regarding, I think with this successfully we are all done with the amendments, whatever are applicable. I think I have gone much a deeper way and have explained the amendments. I hope you all will be able to understand the background behind this amendment, the concept of that amendment, and you will definitely not make a mistake when the question has been tested from this amendments. Hope you guys have understood this. And one important question which we are continuously getting from the students is when the marathon will be uploaded. The work is already under progress. Within some 3 to 4 days of this video getting uploaded, you will also get the marathon recordings. Okay, so all the very best guys. Do your preparation fully, give your 100% efforts and get through the examination. Thank you so much. Bye everybody, take care.